A story begins, introducing two supreme predators at the top of the food chain. They are a powerful, white-haired woman of the wolf clan and a wise, blonde-haired man of the lion clan. However, the focus shifts to an adorable, fluffy white rabbit with large green eyes. The rabbit scoffs internally, finding the idea of such predators utterly ridiculous. It questions the irony of being born a mere rabbit, contrary to its destiny. Its reflection confirms the undeniable truth. It has the small, furry body of a rabbit. Dejected and alone, the tiny rabbit wonders what its future could possibly hold now. It laments its fate born from a divine prophecy, yet gifted with nothing but cuteness. This is no ordinary rabbit. It's one destined to bring ruin. A ruin that will one day fall upon the noble houses of both its mother and father. The setting is revealed as the grand and opulent Arus estate, the House of Wolves. A maid greets a young girl with white hair and a blue dress, who chirps that she's going to see the madam. Two maids watch her go, swooning over how adorable and precious the young lady is. As the girl reaches a large door, the maids muse that she'll be incredibly cool once she awakens as a wolf or lion. The young girl proudly introduces herself with a pose. She is Chloe Eris. She explains that she lives in a world inhabited by powerful beastkin. A creation myth tells of a god who gave 4 beastkin families unique supernatural abilities to rule the continent. The families introduced are the future-seeing eagle, Grevis, and the eternally living snake, Demos. The other 2 are the mana-wielding lion, Leander, and the regenerative wolf, Eris. For a time, the families ruled in peace, but as their powers waned, a new prophecy was delivered. The prophecy led to a union between the lion and wolf clans, symbolized by a wedding. Chloe reveals herself to be the baby born from that fated marriage. However, her parents eventually divorced, shattering the union. After her father awakened his power, he left, entrusting her care to her uncle. Back in the present, little Chloe strains to open her mother's large, ornate door. She peeks inside to see her mother, the beautiful Princess Melissa Aris of the Wolf Clan. Chloe hesitates at the door, sensing her mother's sadness once again. She knows that her mother always becomes gloomy in spring, the anniversary of her divorce. Standing on a balcony overlooking the garden, Chloe wonders how she can cheer her mother up. An idea strikes her, and she exclaims that she'll give her mother a special gift. She runs into the garden and gently picks a single white flower. Humming happily, Chloe gathers a beautiful bouquet for her mother. She beams, confident that the flowers will look wonderful on her mother. A rustling sound from the bushes suddenly catches her attention. She peers into the greenery, trying to spot what's moving. A tiny baby rabbit pops out from among the flowers, surprising Chloe. Utterly charmed, Chloe kneels down to get a closer look at the cute animal. She kindly asks the rabbit if it also came to enjoy the garden's flowers. The small rabbit freezes, its body tense with alarm. With a sudden leap, the rabbit flees, causing Chloe to cry out in surprise. Confused, she wonders if it ran away because it sensed she was a beastkin predator. Her thoughts are interrupted by a strange sound she's been hearing from the sky. She looks up to see an eagle circling high above the estate. Kya! The eagle suddenly dives towards her and she lets out a terrified scream. In a panic, she realizes the bird is flying straight for her. Chloe turns and flees in terror, dropping the bouquet she picked for her mother. Safely in her room, she hides under the covers, thinking she was about to die. A moment later, she sits up, questioning why she, a future predator, ran away in fear. Elsewhere, another character, a small rabbit wearing a blue scarf, stares at its reflection in shock. At the same time, Chloe, now transformed into a rabbit herself, is horrified to discover her new, fluffy body. Flailing on her back, the newly transformed rabbit thinks in horror, "No way! How can the child of a wolf and lion be a rabbit?" She desperately thumps her paws, trying to reawaken as a wolf. Holding her bruised head, she wonders if she hit herself too hard in her panic. The shock of her new form is quickly overshadowed by the sudden rush of distant, nightmarish memories. A dark vision surfaces, a menacing man with a bat standing over a cowering figure. What is this? As the disturbing memories flood her mind, the rabbit realizes with dawning horror that she's recalling her past life. She understands now. She's been reincarnated as an extra in a novel titled Prejudice and Prejudice and Prejudice, which begins with Lucian Leander. The novel's tragic start involves Lucian killing his wife Melissa, his daughter Chloe, and then himself. This horrific familicide ignites a devastating war between the lion and wolf clans that nearly destroys the continent. The war rages on until 2 new protagonists finally emerge to restore peace with their unique abilities. Trembling, she finally understands the reason for her father's extreme actions. Ta-da! The reason for the tragedy, she realizes with a jolt, was none other than the birth of a rabbit. She panics, realizing her father must have suspected her mother of cheating, which drove him to murder. A voice from outside the room startles her. No way, it's her mother. Crack! The rabbit freezes in place, recognizing the approaching voice. She suddenly remembers that today was supposed to be her fitting for a new birthday dress. Her mother, Melissa, peeks through the door, announcing that she's coming in. Melissa's eyes widen in shock as she enters, calling out to Chloe in surprise. Phew. Back in her human form, Chloe reassures her mother, relieved that she somehow managed to transform back just in time. Her cheerful uncle bursts into the room, announcing his arrival. He playfully swoops Chloe into the air, exclaiming that he wouldn't miss her birthday dress picking for the world. As her mother and uncle dote on her, Chloe thinks to herself that they're both far too obsessed with her. Internally, she still sees herself as the cute little rabbit. She worries, admitting to herself that her successful transformation back was pure luck, and she doesn't know how to repeat it. Overwhelmed by her dangerous secret, Chloe's eyes well up with tears. Seeing her sudden tears, her uncle holds her close while he and her mother ask what's wrong. As they comfort her, Chloe resolves to tell them the truth to prevent the coming war. Held in her uncle's arms, Chloe struggles to find the words to explain everything. Her mother interrupts, trying to cheer her up by announcing a special lunch, but Chloe realizes she's missed her chance to speak. With predatory smiles, her mother and uncle reveal the special menu, rabbit. Chloe lets out a happy squeal, completely misinterpreting their chilling announcement. In a horrifying fantasy, she imagines herself served on a platter to her beastkin mother and uncle, screaming internally that she's Chloe. Crying with relief at being human, she realizes her first priority isn't the war, but simply surviving her own family. The scene transitions, showing the grand and peaceful heiress estate from the outside. Inside, a maid shows a beautiful dress to Melissa, who admires it while her brother sits silently beside her. The siblings share a concerned thought. Noticing that Chloe still seems down, suddenly Chloe throws a tantrum, screaming that she absolutely will not eat rabbit meat, shocking them both. Their surprise quickly turns to delight as they see she's already changed into a new dress. She stands before them in a beautiful, frilly pink dress. Overcome with adoration, her mother calls her an angel, while her uncle is left speechless by her cuteness. Chloe poses, looking every bit the perfect little lady in her sparkling new outfit. Her family gushes over her stunning emerald eyes. They continue to praise her shiny hair and adorable apple cheeks. Blushing, Chloe thinks her mother and uncle are laying it on a bit thick. She silently tells them they're being embarrassing. Her uncle and mother eagerly reach out, asking their precious little angel for a hug. Chloe laughs with pure joy, delighting her surprised family. Her uncle proudly tells her mother that their preparations were a success, leaving Chloe confused. A maid reveals the surprise, a massive rack filled with every cute dress in the territory. Melissa beams with joy, clapping her hands in delight. Chloe, overwhelmed but ecstatic, marvels at the sheer volume of dresses her family has prepared for her. Hup! With a blush and a gasp, Chloe steels herself for the epic dress obsession. Waking up later, an exhausted Chloe wonders how she even got back to her room after passing out from trying on all those clothes. Her thoughts are interrupted as she recognizes her uncle's voice from outside her room. His words hit Chloe like a lightning bolt. Her father wants to see her. In the drawing room, her uncle angrily reminds Melissa of the day she came back pregnant and asked for a divorce. A painful flashback shows a bruised Melissa, pregnant and forcing a smile, as her brother laments letting her marry because of a prophecy. Melissa calmly asks her brother what would have happened if her refusal had plunged them into war. She explains their defenses are low, but her brother scoffs, welcoming a war to get revenge on the cats and break their trade restrictions. He grins fiercely, clenching his fists in anticipation of a fight. Eavesdropping, Chloe hears her uncle refuse to let her meet her father, and worries that she will be the cause of a war. Melissa states her husband simply requested a meeting as a father, but her brother explodes, citing the Lion Clan's cruel practice of using children as test subjects. He roars that they are monstrous enough to perform experiments even on their own family. Chloe listens silently, her expression troubled by her uncle's horrifying claims. The accusations make her recall the novel's title, Prejudice and More Prejudice, realizing the world operates on the very misunderstandings the book described. The story's lore explains the 4 gifted clans who inherited supernatural abilities, showing portraits of an eagle and a mouse. As portraits of a lion, snake, and wolf appear, the narration details how centuries of isolation allowed small prejudices to fester between the clans. A shattered hourglass illustrates how those long-held prejudices eventually became accepted as truth. Chloe remembers that in the novel, even the main character's first meeting was ruined by a simple misunderstanding. She desperately hopes the rumors are false, imagining her rabbit form being tormented by a lion, terrified of being tossed off a cliff. Shaking with fear, she prays she won't be turned into some twisted lab experiment. Melissa cuts her brother off, conceding that she's been far too naive about the situation. Vowing to toughen up for her daughter, Melissa starts walking toward the bedroom, causing Chloe to panic and race back to bed. She dives under the covers just as the door begins to open. Peeking inside, Melissa wonders why Chloe's door was left open. She walks over to the bed, finding her daughter seemingly fast asleep. Gently stroking Chloe's hair, Melissa whispers lovingly to her sleeping child. With a soft, determined smile, she silently promises to protect her daughter, no matter what happens. Melissa's expression is firm with resolve as she stands over her daughter. As her mother leaves, Chloe peeks out from under the blanket. Lying awake, she recalls a grim detail from the original story. The male lead destroys the Wolf clan, blaming them for the war. The happy memory of two adoring maids fades as she realizes all the people she loves in the Wolf clan are in mortal danger. A vision of her smiling mother and uncle is consumed by darkness as she confronts the terrible truth: they're all going to die. Tears stream down her face as she admits her memories of the novel are hazy. A nightmarish flash of a man from her previous abusive life surfaces in her mind. She contrasts that horror with her current family's overwhelming love, realizing this is the first true family she's ever had. She springs from her bed, filled with a new resolve. She is going to protect them. Trying to recall the story's timeline, she identifies the Lion Clan's invasion as the first major disaster. But a strange sensation distracts her. Gasp! While sitting at her desk, her long white rabbit ears suddenly pop out, much to her shock. Panicked, she frantically tries to hide her ears, determined to keep her rabbit awakening a secret. She tries to write a warning about a kidnapping during the invasion, but realizes with frustration that she doesn't know when it will happen. Dressed in a beautiful yellow gown, Chloe follows a maid down a brightly lit hall. The moment the Wolf family has eagerly awaited has arrived as Chloe stands before a grand entrance. An attendant announces the arrival of Princess Chloe to her waiting family. Her mother, uncle, and a maid greet her with a joyous, "Happy birthday, Chloe!" Overjoyed, Chloe claps her hands, blushing happily in her sunny birthday dress. Two maids present her with a stack of gifts, gushing over how adorable she is today. Guests call her an angel, as her mother instructs artists to capture every perfect detail of her beloved daughter. Beaming with happiness, Chloe gives a heartfelt thank you to everyone at her party. The lavish party is in full swing, with mountains of gifts, a grand cake, and artists capturing the princess's portrait. Amidst the celebration, Chloe quietly picks at a bouquet with a thoughtful, serious expression. A brown-haired man in a formal uniform approaches, wishing Her Highness a happy birthday. Chloe questions his plain attire, but he insists on fulfilling his duty as her escort knight, which she finds amusingly unnecessary. He presents his gift, a handmade doll, leaving Chloe to wonder if the strange-looking toy is supposed to be her. In a cute aside, Chloe asks the knight, Brooks, about the doll, causing him to blush and nervously claim it's for his daughter. Chloe adores the gift, promising to sleep with it every night, much to a relieved Brooks's delight. Wow! Clutching her new doll, Chloe gasps in surprise. Held by her smiling uncle and mother, Chloe is brought before her birthday cake and told to make a wish. Holding her doll close, she shuts her eyes and clasps her hands together to pray. Standing before the lit candles, she promises to try her absolute hardest. Her solemn wish is for the safety of her family and the entire kingdom as the candles mysteriously extinguish. Sharing a happy moment with her family, Chloe feels a surge of confidence that everything will be fine. The joyous celebration is shattered as Brooks bursts in, breathlessly announcing urgent news. Visibly panicked, Brooks stammers that a messenger has arrived. He delivers the terrifying news. The Lion Clan is attacking, having used warp magic to infiltrate the palace, leaving Chloe stunned. An unseen enemy screams for his soldiers to find Princess Chloe, who wonders what is happening. Her mother appears with a sword, ordering Brooks to protect Chloe as she reveals the lion forces are hunting her. As Brooks scoops her up and flees, Chloe realizes with dread that the original story has already changed. While the wolves rally for battle, Chloe recalls that in the novel, this attack wasn't supposed to happen until she was 10. A terrible vision flashes through her mind of her mother being struck down by a sword as she watches helplessly from Brooks's arms. Fleeing down a hallway, Chloe asks about her mother, and Brooks tries to reassure her of Melissa's strength. Overcome with a bad feeling, Chloe screams to go back to her mom, but Brooks insists they must evacuate to safety. Suddenly, she hears her mother's defiant voice shouting at someone not to take her daughter. Brooks's face contorts in shock at something he sees ahead. Ugh! Thrown off balance, he cries out to the princess as he stumbles. Now on the floor, Brooks watches in disbelief as Chloe runs on, her bunny ears suddenly visible, while another guard calls out to her. Racing past fallen guards, Chloe fears that if the story proceeds, her mother will be injured and her uncle will start a war. She steels herself, determined to find her mother and escape the palace together. Her search is cut short, as two enemy soldiers block her path with crossed swords. Her mother, Melissa, appears, horrified to see Chloe has been captured by the enemy soldiers. With a flash of steel, Melissa dispatches her captors just as a soldier shouts that they've found their target. Snarling at the attackers, Melissa warns Chloe to close her eyes. Chloe squeezes her eyes shut as the sickening sound of battle and a pained grunt fill the air. Melissa rushes to her daughter's side, asking if she's all right as Chloe trembles and gasps for air. Elsewhere, Brooks sprints through the halls, desperately calling out for the princess. He finds them, sword at the ready, breathing a sigh of relief that Princess Chloe is safe. Melissa furiously scolds Brooks for bringing Chloe into the fray, and he apologetically accepts any punishment. Holding a now sleeping Chloe, Melissa declares that hiding her is the priority, and that she will accompany them. They find refuge in a tall, secluded tower under a starry sky. Melissa prepares to leave, but a tearful Chloe clings to her, begging her not to go. To calm her daughter, Melissa proudly declares she is the strongest of the Grey Wolves, reminding Chloe how easily she defeated her enemies. She pulls Chloe into a tight, comforting hug with tears in her eyes. Chloe reluctantly agrees to wait for her mother's return. As the heavy doors close, Melissa looks back with a loving smile, telling her daughter she loves her. Alone in the dark, Chloe sinks to the floor, despairing that she's a helpless child who couldn't change their fate. Her lonely thoughts are interrupted by the sudden sound of the door creaking open. As ominous shadows stretch across the floor, an unfamiliar voice asks if this is the right place, and Chloe closes her eyes in fear. A traumatic flashback shows a young boy with black hair hiding in a dark room as a voice taunts him for thinking he could hide. A voice taunts a terrified, crying boy in a flashback, asking if he's desperate to be killed. The memory bleeds into the present as Chloe, frozen in fear, hears a voice demanding she come out immediately while she begs for help. A menacing man with his face obscured by shadow finds her hiding place, calling her Lee Ah-young. The vision shifts, and Chloe, now in her yellow dress, cowers on the floor before a blonde-haired man, tearfully apologizing and begging him not to hit her. Shaking, she clasps her hands and promises to do whatever he asks, pleading for forgiveness. The blonde-haired man stands perfectly still, his expression unreadable as he listens to her pleas. With a tear rolling down her cheek, Chloe looks up at him with a pained expression. Bathed in a soft blue light, the blonde-haired man sheds a single tear, his face a mask of sorrow. His expression softens into a gentle, tearful smile. He reaches out a hand to her, and a blushing Chloe thinks that perhaps things are different than she feared. The blonde-haired man kneels before her, offering his hand with a kind and reassuring smile. A brief memory shows her mother, Melissa, reading a book to her as an infant. Melissa's expression is pained as Chloe's memory reveals she once came to hate the man before her. Back in the tower, Chloe wonders why that particular memory surfaced in her dream. Lying in a luxurious bed, she clutches her doll and questions her strange surroundings. Her confusion mounts as she realizes something is wrong. Looking up, she realizes with the start that she's never seen the ornate ceiling before. From her perspective in bed, she sees two men sitting in chairs across the opulent room. She recognizes the blonde man in the black shirt as the one who was crying when he looked at her. She recalls his tear-streaked face, remembering that she fainted right after seeing him. In a hazy flashback, she feels herself falling into his arms. The memory shows the blonde man catching her and holding her close. A frantic memory resurfaces. A guard shouts that Grand Duke Lucian is running away with Lady Chloe as Melissa screams in protest from below. A distorted, staticky image of a city appears as someone desperately screams her name. Fully awake now, Chloe trembles in bed, clutching her doll and wondering what she should do. Overhearing a conversation, she learns they believe she was abused, fed rotten food, and terrified by wild beasts. The voices continue, claiming the poor kid was even used in cruel experiments. Horrified, Chloe wonders if such a place could exist, but freezes when they mention the child was found locked in a wardrobe. A voice scoffs that she was clinging to a trashy doll, making Chloe look down at her treasured gift in confusion. The unseen speakers conclude that the Wolf Clan must have abused Chloe, a revelation that shocks her to her core. As the blonde man listens, another voice claims that they can never tell a lie, and Chloe wonders who they are, picturing 3 sinister silhouettes. Hearing them slander her mother, Chloe's fear turns to righteous anger. She bolts upright in bed, clutching her doll and shouting that her mother is not that kind of person. Having leaped from the bed, her sudden outburst catches the attention of the 2 men in the room. Horrified at her own impulsiveness, Chloe panics, realizing she just lost her temper and shouted. Hearing footsteps approach, she decides to feign sleep to avoid confrontation. She dives under the covers, convinced that she's been caught. Peeking from the blankets, she stretches and fakes a yawn, loudly wishing everyone a good morning. One of the men, a blonde man in a green vest, stands by her bed and asks his daughter if she slept well. Confused by his words, Chloe thinks she recognizes his voice. She remembers the blonde man from her dream kneeling before her with a gentle expression. The memory clicks into place. She recognizes his face from her mother's wedding portrait. The blonde man in the black shirt stands nearby, his arms crossed as he blushes slightly. Chloe looks from one man to the other, wondering who the second person is, as he asks what they should do. A horrifying vision from the novel flashes in her mind. The blonde man, head of the Lion Clan, standing over her murdered uncle. The man in the green vest introduces himself thoughtfully as the head of the Lion family, Ian Leander. Gripping her blanket, Chloe realizes she's in a volatile situation where a single misunderstanding could ignite a war. Determined to prevent disaster, she sits up to explain she overheard them and that there's been a misunderstanding. She earnestly declares that her mom and uncle love her, and she loves them, insisting there was never any abuse. Ian reaches out to gently pat her head, causing her to flinch as she insists there is more to the story. The blonde man in the black shirt gently pats Chloe's head, suggesting they eat first and talk later. With a creak of the ornate door, the 2 blonde men depart, leaving her alone. Left by herself in the grand room, Chloe sits on the bed in quiet contemplation. With a nervous sigh, she fiddles with the collar of her dress, feeling unsettled. A warm meal of soup and vegetables is brought into the room for her. 2 maids, Isabel and Cassie, ask if she's finished or dislikes the food, and Chloe hastily reassures them it's delicious. When Chloe explains she eats little, the maids intimidatingly remind her that children are supposed to eat well. Thanking them timidly, Chloe watches as the 2 maids take the food cart and prepare to leave. Startled by their departure, she can only manage a quiet, "Ah, okay." As they leave, Isabel glances back with a cryptic smile, promising she's available anytime. Chloe feels uneasy, thinking everyone is strange and noting the knights stationed outside her door. She recalls that the abilities of the Lion Clan are powered by magic stones. She remembers hearing that in the Lion territory, magic stones are as common as pebbles. With a burst of determination, she decides to start searching her room for a stone. Hopeful, she begins rummaging through a box of toys, thinking one might be hidden there. Her search continues as she peers behind a piece of furniture. After tossing things aside, she realizes with disappointment that there's nothing to be found. Flopping onto the floor in exhaustion, she fumes that despite the rumors, all she can find are baby toys. Suddenly, she spots a fancy-looking wooden box tucked away under the bed. Her eyes go wide as she jumps up in surprise and renewed hope. She pulls out the heavy wooden chest with a quiet click. Peering inside, her eyes widen in shock as she exclaims, "This is!" A dark, ethereal image of purple flowers marks a transition in her thoughts. Breaking the fourth wall, a chibi version of Chloe announces she's here to explain things to the readers. Staring into the chest, she repeats in disbelief, this is!" The scene transitions again with the image of purple flowers against a dark background. Opening the chest, she finds it filled with neatly folded baby clothes and tiny shoes. She wonders why the room is filled exclusively with items for an infant. Kneeling beside the chest, she notices something small and pink sparkling inside. She remembers a key detail from the original story. She was the last child born into the Lion family. A vision of Ian Leander appears, his expression full of tearful joy as he reaches out a hand. Clutching her dress, a blushing Chloe wonders if they prepared this entire room just for her. Slapping her own cheeks, she scolds herself to get a grip and not jump to conclusions without knowing the full story. With renewed focus, she reminds herself that her main priority is finding a mana stone. After searching all night with no success, she collapses in her chair, doubting if this is truly the mana-rich Lion territory. Determined to continue her search elsewhere, she shyly asks a maid for permission to go outside, which is immediately granted. A white dove takes flight from a balcony adorned with flowers, signaling her exit. Now in a new blue dress, Chloe stands outside and watches the dove fly away. She overhears people whispering nearby, identifying her as the girl from the terrifying wolf family. Thinking of her dad and uncle, she recalls a memory of them standing together. Saddened, she wonders why everyone has such a wrong impression of her family and resolves to fix it. She gasps as the blue gem on her dress suddenly begins to glow with a bright light. Taking a confident step forward, she prepares to explain that the stories about her family are wrong. A hand suddenly grabs her from behind, and she cries out in shock as her attendants look on, horrified. She is pulled back into a sudden, firm embrace. Held safely in Isabel's arms, the maid asks if she is all right, leaving a bewildered Chloe to wonder what happened. The other attendants rush over in a panic, exclaiming that she almost had a terrible fall, and Isabel saved her. Looking back at the stone path, she sees a single small rock and wonders if she tripped on it. She looks up with wide, innocent eyes, still trying to understand the sudden commotion. Chloe reflects that she was unfairly judging her attendants based on their scary faces. Realizing they genuinely care, she recalls Isabel and another attendant arguing about how best to keep her safe. With newfound clarity, she concludes that her wolf family must have misunderstood the lions as well. This realization gives her the courage to be a little braver. Chloe excitedly tells her attendants she has somewhere she wants to visit, and the gray-haired man readily agrees. Pointing with determination, she asks to see the tall, cool-looking tower in the distance. At the top of the tower, she gasps in awe at the majestic view of the lion territory. She smiles, realizing with excitement that this must be the tower where mana stones are made. A maid cheerfully confirms the tower is used for making mana stones and is magically protected, causing Chloe to internally celebrate her good fortune. Looking down from the great height, Chloe remarks on how secure the outer wall seems. Her attendant boasts that not even a strong army could break through, a claim that shocks Chloe. Anxious, she immediately begins scanning the walls, looking for a weak point or a place to sneak in. A pair of hands gently takes hers, startling her from her thoughts. It's the dark-haired maid, who smiles reassuringly as she holds Chloe's hands. Two guards step forward, vowing to protect her with their lives from the evil wolves. Chloe worries that their misunderstanding will make it difficult for her to reunite with her mother and uncle. She grips the stone railing, her resolve hardening. As wind whips around her on the balcony, her expression turns serious. Her attendants completely misread the situation, believing she's bravely hiding her fear and admiring her selflessness. Stomping her foot in frustration, Chloe insists she's telling the truth and pleads for them to listen. Suddenly, the stone railing she is leaning on begins to crack and crumble. With a cry, she loses her balance and falls backward off the tower as a horrified maid watches. Her attendants scream in panic as she plummets from the high tower. A desperate cry of, "My lady!" rings out through the air. Falling through the sky, Chloe reaches out a hand in terror. Her mind races with a single thought as she falls. She doesn't want to die. Her fall is suddenly halted as she lands safely in someone's arms, wondering if she's still alive. A familiar voice makes her gasp in recognition. Looking up, she sees Ian Leander holding her, who sternly asks why his daughter was falling from the tower, leaving Chloe stunned. Ian coldly rebukes his attendants, reminding them that the lady's safety is their top priority. The attendants apologize profusely, admitting they mistakenly relied on the protective magic of the outer wall. Peeking over Ian's shoulder, Chloe curiously wonders what protective magic means. She sees the broken piece of the ledge floating in midair, realizing with amazement that the magic is real. Snapping out of her amazement, she realizes she must tell the Duke that her fall wasn't the attendant's fault. Turning in his arms, she tries to explain that she begged to visit the tower and that everyone told her to be careful. With a frighteningly cold expression, Ian tells Chloe to be quiet, stating that her wishes don't absolve the staff of their duties. Terrified, she buries her face in his chest, thinking that if she stays silent, her attendants, who look utterly panicked, will be punished because of her. Her eyes fix on the ornate, sparkling brooch pinned to his cravat. Stealing her resolve, she clutches the gem on her own dress. To get his attention, she grabs his lapel and lets out a loud, tearful cry. "Daddy!" Her cry stuns Ian and the attendants into silence, as one guard thinks in disbelief that she just called him Daddy. A chibi version of Chloe sweats nervously, thinking she may have overdone it a little. The tall, majestic tower stands against the sky. Burying her blushing face into his chest, Chloe repeats her desperate cry of "D-Daddy!" The attendants remain in shocked silence as they process what she just said, while Chloe notes their surprise. Ian gently takes her small hand in his, softly speaking her name. He looks down at her with a gentle, questioning expression while holding her hand securely. In response, Chloe throws her arms around him in a tight hug. A soft, surprised smile graces Ian's lips as he looks down at the child in his arms. Flustered by his reaction, Chloe looks up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. She sees a vision of a beautiful, sad woman with long white hair looking down at her. A gentle hand touches her chin, causing her to look up in confusion. The hand belongs to Ian, who kneels before her with a fond, affectionate expression. Chloe flinches away as he reaches for her, and he thinks he must clear up the misunderstanding she has. Ian and his attendants stand together, their expressions grim and serious. Chloe gasps in realization, clutching the gem on her dress. The scene transitions to the majestic, white clock tower she had pointed to earlier. Inside the grand, sunlit tower, she reflects that while they all came here together, something is still bothering her. Patting her head, Ian agrees with her, adding that he knows her mother, Melissa, would never have abused her. A determined chibi Chloe clenches her fists, telling herself to think positive. Following her father, she believes this is her chance to prove the Lion family's strength with their abundant mana stones. A set of large, ornate doors swing open, flooding the hallway with brilliant light. The doors reveal a room filled with countless sparkling mana stones, leaving Chloe speechless with shock. Ian calls for Chloe to come over, and she timidly agrees. She approaches him cautiously, fists clenched in nervous anticipation. Ian stands proudly beside her in front of a table laden with shimmering magical crystals. After thanking him, she wonders if all of this is truly for her, feeling more resentment than joy over her first gift from him. Clenching her fist tightly, she laments that if the Wolf family had this many stones, their lives would have been much easier. She recalls how mana stones are essential for managing a territory, but the Lion family's interference meant her own family only received 3 last month. A flashback shows a white-haired man refusing a coat, instead instructing his aide to send badly needed mana stones to the infirmary. She remembers how the Lion family's blockade made even cheap mana stones a rare blessing, and wonders if her own father is responsible. Her thoughts are interrupted as Ian suddenly kneels and presents her with a small, beautifully carved box. With a click, he opens the box to reveal a dazzling ring nestled inside. He gently slips the elegant, sparkling ring onto her small finger. Chloe stares in awe at the beautiful mana stone ring now on her hand. She thinks of a simple green bracelet from the Wolf family, noting it doesn't even compare to this gift. With a small smile, Ian asks if she needs anything else. Stunned by his generosity, she looks at shelves of crystals while he encourages her to ask for whatever she wants. Clenching her fist, she decides that now that she has a protection stone, she can move on to her next plan. Her expression fills with newfound determination. An attendant enters Ian's lavish office to give a report. Looking up from his desk, Ian asks his attendant if Chloe managed to catch the bird. The attendant recalls Chloe fiercely chasing a white dove with a net, thinking she's as ferocious as one would expect from a lion. Ian smiles faintly, finding the news a relief. The attendant continues his report, stating that traces of protective magic were detected in Chloe's room. A dark-haired aide with glasses reports that the magic was triggered by the bird, and its coordinates point to the wolf territory, asking for orders. Ian, looking weary, states he anticipated this when he gave her the mana stone and dismisses the matter. As Ian walks away, the aide confirms he understands the order. The scene transitions, showing a lone shadow cast across the floor. Ian watches over a sleeping Chloe, remarking internally how much her sleeping face resembles her mother's. He thoughtfully touches the brooch on his cravat. A memory surfaces of a radiant woman with long, white hair. The memory continues, showing the woman, Melissa, embracing a younger Ian in a tender moment. His thoughts turn bitter as he addresses the memory of Melissa, accusing her of only pretending to care for Chloe while he holds a simple green bracelet. He scoffs at the cheap bracelet, questioning if that was her idea of love, and reflects that he always wished for his child's well-being. He reveals that for the past 7 years, he has been sending the highest grade mana stones to the Wolf clan, wondering how Chloe was so neglected. He recalls Chloe's desperate plea, insisting that she was never abused. A dark resolve settles over him, as he vows that he will never forgive them. Clutching the bracelet, his expression hardens into a mask of cold fury as he promises retribution against anyone who dared to harm his daughter. The scene shifts to the grand, moonlit heiress estate, home of the Wolf clan. A beautiful woman with long white hair gently holds a glowing white dove that has just arrived. Noticing the familiar ring on its leg, she wonders what this message could be. She reads the attached letter, her expression one of utter shock. Clutching the letter to her chest, she closes her eyes with a look of pure relieved joy. A voice promises Chloe that her mother is coming to save her now. The woman's face hardens with cold fury as she vows that Lucian Leander, who kidnapped her daughter, will pay the price. In a grand meeting room, the blonde-haired Lucian Leander announces that they will discuss the issue of the heir to the Lion family. Chloe listens in surprise, wondering who the heir could be since the novel she read never specified one. With a firm expression, Lucian makes his startling decision known. The entire room erupts in collective shock at his announcement. Stunned, Chloe can't believe her ears, asking herself if he means her, even though she just arrived. As a man protests that she belongs to the rival Wolf family, Chloe internally agrees, thinking they must stop this. A dark, ominous thought wonders why there is such a fuss. With the spirit of a roaring lion behind him, Lucian menacingly asks if anyone plans to oppose his decision. Two council members immediately give enthusiastic thumbs-ups, sweating as they voice their wholehearted, panicked agreement. An older man raises a hand to get Lucian's attention, addressing him as Your Highness. Identified as Marquise Connor Myers, he suggests that before officially naming Chloe the heir, they should first consult Lady Joanna, Lucian's fiancée from the Serpent family. The thought trails off, suggesting they should at least hear her opinion first. An annoyed Lucian sighs that he forgot about her, recalling their engagement contract stipulates any child they have would be an heir candidate. He scoffs at the cunning Serpent family for filling the contract with such bothersome clauses. Chloe gasps in realization, remembering that Joanna is the male lead's older sister from the original story. She recalls that the engagement wasn't by choice, but was forced upon the Lion family. A flashback explains that because her parents defied a dragon's divine oracle, they were subjected to meddling from other nobles. As a result, Ian had to replace his older brother Lucian as the head of the family. Lucian was then forced into an unfair engagement with the Serpent family. Feeling guilty that her parents' actions led to her uncle's unwanted marriage, Chloe resolves to use her knowledge to help him. Her brilliant green eyes sparkle with newfound determination. Clenching her little fists, Chloe sits at the table, ready to act. Lucian abruptly ends the discussion, telling her to go play outside as he lifts her out of her chair. Fuming, Chloe can't believe he just kicked her out and is treating her like a child. Blushing with frustration, she decides she must prove to them that she is special and not to be dismissed. Her train of thought is immediately derailed by the offer of cocoa with marshmallows. Powerless against sweets, Chloe decides to enjoy the treat first and scheme later. As Lucian waves goodbye, Chloe turns and notices one of the men remaining at the table. She recognizes him as the man from before, now identified as Count Connor Myers. She gives him a cheerful wave, silently thanking the loyal vassal for trying to help her. The scene transitions to a magnificent glass greenhouse on the estate grounds. Chloe nervously asks if she can go inside, and a voice warmly encourages her to do so. A maid leads her into the sunlit greenhouse, past a beautiful gurgling fountain. A voice hopes she likes the garden, as the view fills with countless pristine white flowers. Wah! Chloe looks at the beautiful flowers in wide-eyed wonder. She realizes the greenhouse is full of lysanthius flowers, her mother's absolute favorite. A joyful memory surfaces of a younger Lucian and Melissa laughing together. Chloe shakes her head, trying to snap out of her nostalgic thoughts and stay focused. She clenches her fists, her expression hardening with resolve. She confidently reminds herself that her mom and uncle will be coming for her soon. Back in her opulent room, maids prepare a new dress and a jewelry box for her. A maid with dark hair tied in a bun turns from a large door, offering to open it for Chloe. Flustered, Chloe turns away with a deep blush spreading across her cheeks. The doors open to reveal Ian and Lucian, both looking on with composed expressions. Chloe stands in her beautiful new dress, looking up in wide-eyed wonder. Her green eyes widen in absolute shock, her small fist clenching in front of her chest. Wow! Lucian is completely captivated by her appearance, thinking she looks just like a lovely fairy. Lucian wonders if a cute angel has come from the Lion clan, comparing her to a round, white rabbit, much to Chloe's internal dismay. Panicked, Chloe wonders if she should have dressed more majestically and desperately hopes they don't discover she's a rabbit beastkin, especially with her rabbit-like hairstyle. As Ian proudly declares that his daughter, the heir, is obviously a brave lion, Lucian quickly adds that cute lions exist too. Blushing and clenching her fist, she breathes a sigh of relief that the introduction at least passed without any major issues. Lucian looks on with a gentle, warm smile, surrounded by a radiant golden light. With a bright, joyful laugh, Chloe reaches her hand out towards him. Her eyes sparkle as she suddenly wonders why everything has gone so quiet. Wah! She gasps in realization. She's so used to holding hands with her mom and uncle that she reached out by pure instinct. A large hand gently takes hold of her small one. She looks up in surprise, a blush on her cheeks as she wonders what's happening. Looking slightly flustered himself, Ian gently asks if she wants to hold hands and walk with him. She eagerly agrees, and the two begin to walk forward, hand in hand. Now holding both of their hands, Chloe walks between them and thinks about how big and warm her father and uncle's hands feel. A quiet moment focuses on her white hair as they walk. Her heart flutters as she looks up, a blush gracing her cheeks. For the first time, she feels like she has become part of a real family. They arrive at another grand building on the Lion family estate. As they walk, Lucian asks Chloe if she's ever met anyone from the Demos family, and she nervously replies that she hasn't. Ian gives her a meaningful look, making her wonder if he's silently telling her to be careful. He gently adjusts her dress, and she blushes, worrying about what he's about to say. Ian warns that the Demos family are vile and cunning people, said to steal others' life force and even use their own children as mere tools. The man, Ian, looks forward with a gentle expression as someone calls his name. Chloe realizes that, judging by their reactions, the Lion family must truly believe all the terrible rumors about the Snake family. She recalls a story where a boy with black hair, asked about his parents, stated they only ever cared about him. The memory continues, describing them as a certain kind of people. They were the kind of parents who believed they could give up anything for his sake. The story from the book unfolds against a golden light. She remembers the tragic conclusion. Because he loved his family so much, he may have wiped out the Wolf Clan to protect them. She realizes this must be another misunderstanding, just like the one between the Wolf and Lion families. As they approach the Grand Throne Room, she steels herself, knowing she's finally about to meet the Snake family. But as she enters, she stops, sensing a strange and unexpected vibe in the room. A voice announces their arrival, welcoming Lord Ian and Duke Lucian. The head of the Snake family, Dylan Demos, greets them with a smile, remarking that it has been a long time. His gaze falls upon Chloe, and he notes that they've brought the heir with them. Chloe finds the atmosphere surprisingly calm, but before she can process it, Lucian covers her mouth while thanking Lord Demos for coming. Dylan pointedly asks if Lucian's fiancée is unwell again, lamenting that, at this rate, he won't see her even once before the wedding. As tensions flare between the Lion and the Snake, Dylan claims his daughter is too frail to attend and proposes they discuss the heir instead. Dylan then gestures to a young boy with black hair standing nearby, catching Chloe by surprise. The boy is described as having hair like fragments of the night sky and eyes as clear and blue as the sky. He looks on with a serious and composed expression. Chloe realizes with a jolt that this is the male lead from the original novel, Scion Demos. Scion takes a step forward and offers a simple, formal greeting. He places a hand over his heart, offering a polite and gentle smile. He formally introduces himself as Scion Demos, the heir of the Demos family. Utterly confused, Chloe wonders what's happening, as this polite boy doesn't match the vibe she expected from the character of Scion. As she stares at Scion, Chloe wonders why his bright, clear eyes look so utterly empty. Lucian leans down to a startled Chloe, asking if she feels unwell, but she quickly insists that she's fine. Lucian hums thoughtfully, concluding that Scion must be nervous after being scared by the tense atmosphere in the meeting room. Lucian suggests to Dylan Demos that the children play in the garden under the watch of nights, but Dylan calmly replies that his son is fine where he is. After a moment, Dylan agrees to the idea, while a stern-looking woman with black hair stands in the background. The woman instructs Scion to go outside with Chloe, and he dutifully agrees, addressing her as Mother. As Chloe glances back, she notices that Dylan's expression has soured considerably. Chloe dashes ahead down a magnificent hall, while Scion follows at a more reserved pace. The scene shifts to a vast and beautiful garden with arched walkways covered in flowers. Looking at Scion's blank face, Chloe thinks that his strange demeanor is becoming more apparent. With her fists clenched, Chloe grows worried, wondering if some unknown event from the novel has already transpired. She approaches Scion, who is reading on a bench, and introduces herself as Chloe Heiress, but he doesn't respond. Trying to break the silence, she tells him about their chef's delicious strawberry cake, but he continues to ignore her. A close-up shows Chloe's wide green eyes filled with confusion at his silence. Looking up at the sky, she tries one more time to start a conversation, casually saying, "Hey, so..." He finally reacts with a slight blush, and Chloe internally celebrates, thinking she's getting through to him. Scion leans back with a peaceful, blushing expression, lost in a pleasant thought. Feeling proud of herself, Chloe thinks she nailed it, but her celebration is cut short when Sion finally speaks, calling out, "Hey, you." He bluntly asks why she keeps talking to him when he is clearly ignoring her, causing Chloe to freeze in shock. Flailing her arms in embarrassment, she insists she just wants to be friends, but he merely calls her funny and walks away. Watching him go, she blushes in confusion, wondering what he could have possibly meant by that. Sion glances back, revealing that he saw her earlier trying to curry favor with Duke Lucian. As a dark aura emanates from his hand, a furious Chloe demands to know what he just said. Blushing with rage, she yells at him for speaking so recklessly when he doesn't know anything about her situation. Later, Chloe sulks in bed, berating herself for being bothered by his words, when she was supposed to be impressing him. She sits up in a huff, deciding it's not her fault she's upset, it's entirely Sion's. A sudden knock sounds at her door, interrupting her thoughts. Lucian enters, explaining the meeting ran long, and a surprised Chloe jumps up from her chair, calling out his name. Still shaking from her encounter with Sion, she stammers that she's fine, wondering about her uncle's sudden visit. He brushes her concern aside, saying there's something more important he wants to show her. With a brilliant, warm smile, Lucian holds the door open for her. He leads her away with her eyes closed, building anticipation until he finally tells her to look. Wow. She opens her eyes to a breathtaking, glittering view of the estate at night, marveling at the world before her. She exclaims that the entire landscape is shining like a jewel, and to please Lucian agrees. He gently covers one of her eyes, telling her that this is a secret place only accessible to the Leander family. As he adjusts her hair ribbon, he formally and warmly welcomes Chloe to the Leander family. Touched by the gesture, Chloe stares with wide, emotional eyes. She reflects on how she used to fear her uncle, haunted by the novel's plot where her father killed him. Looking down with a gentle expression, she admits to herself that she feels bad for ever having doubted him. Their moment is interrupted by an aide who bursts onto the balcony, frantically reminding Lucian of a mountain of paperwork waiting for him. Chloe puts two and two together, realizing her uncle skipped work to be with her as he freezes in place with a guilty expression. Lucian sheepishly tries to justify himself, claiming that even a duke needs a break, and this is his official rest time. Chloe blushes, surprised and amused to see this unexpectedly childish side of her powerful uncle. Flustered, Lucian quickly suggests they table the discussion about his work ethic for later. He sits down on the steps, explaining that his only goal for today was to properly welcome her to the family. Dressed in adorable, chick-patterned pajamas, Chloe fiercely swings a wooden practice sword. She practices her sword forms on an unsuspecting, ornate chair. Tossing her arms up in frustration, she wonders what her special power could be if not swordsmanship, complaining that she's been trying for hours. Determined to find her hidden talent, she tries out various special moves like Palm Blast and Flame Strike on a stuffed animal. A frustrated Chloe, drawn as a chibi with bunny ears, clenches her fists and laments that she failed at everything. Back in her room, Chloe looks down with a dejected expression and a faint blush on her cheeks. A knock sounds at her ornate bedroom door as a voice asks, "Chloe, may I come in?" Panicking, Chloe frantically hides her wooden sword and stuffed animal, yelling for them to wait just a moment. As Lucian enters, a flustered Chloe nervously asks him what's the matter. Holding a tray with a cup, Lucian explains that he heard from Isabel and asks if she went to the watchtower with Ian. Chloe freezes, recalling how her uncle Ian had told her their visit to the watchtower was a secret just between them. Lucian sits down beside her on the bed as she looks up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. He kindly offers her some cocoa and promises to show her an even better place next time. With a gentle blush, Lucian extends the mug of warm cocoa toward her. Chloe's eyes light up with joy as she gratefully accepts the drink. The two sit together peacefully as Chloe happily sips her cocoa, agreeing with a cheerful, "Yes!" Suddenly, the room flickers and the lights go out, making Chloe wonder if there's been a power outage. From outside the door, concerned voices call out, asking if His Highness and Lady Chloe are safe. Lucian calmly reassures the guards, blaming the outage on a Mana Stone issue before silently thinking to himself, "Invader." With a grim expression, Lucian internally orders an immediate check of the castle. Two guards in formal uniforms quickly acknowledge the command. Lucian tells a worried Chloe he needs to go check the area, and she asks if he has to leave right now. He looks at her with a serious expression, promising to return quickly and telling her not to move. Large double doors close with a thud, leaving Chloe alone in the room. Walking down a dark corridor, Lucian notes that while everyone is checking the castle, he distinctly felt a presence nearby. Crash! An intruder in a dark, hooded uniform smashes through a window, surprising a shocked Lucian. A skilled intruder with white hair holds a sword to a grimacing Lucian's throat, making him think the wolves sent one of their best. Deciding he can't fight in front of Chloe's room, Lucian resolves to lure the intruder away as their swords clash. A thought bubble appears, stating, "I knew a day like this would come." Still held at sword point, Lucian's eyes widen as he recognizes the familiar voice of his attacker. The intruder grabs his collar, menacingly vowing to sever Lucian Leander's neck. The intruder, a woman with long white hair and fierce yellow eyes, clarifies her threat. "That day, I mean." Lucian stares in disbelief, his composure breaking as he utters the name. "Melissa?" A voice from down the hall asks if his grace is all right, drawing Melissa's attention to the open doorway. Melissa turns to see Chloe standing in the doorway, who had come to investigate the loud noise. Shocked by Chloe's appearance, Melissa drops her sword with a loud clatter. Melissa rushes to Chloe and kneels, embracing her and frantically asking if she's hurt anywhere. As a tear wells up in her eye, Chloe looks at the woman holding her and confusedly asks, "Huh, Mom?" Melissa gazes at Chloe with a soft, emotional expression, while Chloe looks back in stunned silence. Melissa's demeanor hardens as she holds her glowing sword to Lucian's throat, questioning who decides her fate. Lucian ignites his own sword with power, defiantly asking if she intends to take Chloe. Standing protectively in front of Chloe, Lucian declares that she is his daughter, but Melissa scoffs, questioning his right to call himself her dad. Melissa pulls Chloe into a protective embrace, angrily yelling at Lucian that he has no right to her. Lucian calmly states his duty to protect Chloe, but Melissa accuses him of abandoning them first. He suggests they talk later, away from the child. Enraged, Melissa continues to yell at him for suggesting they talk later when he was the one who left. As the argument escalates, Chloe looks up with a trembling, tearful expression as someone calls her name. Melissa softens, asking a crying Chloe what's wrong, while Lucian gently tries to comfort her. Lucian takes Chloe into his arms, holding her close and comforting her as she sobs. Chloe explains through tears that they were fighting, but Lucian calmly dismisses it as a misunderstanding from a long time ago. Melissa watches in disbelief, surprised by how naturally Lucian is comforting Chloe, and how she leans on him for support. With a look of realization, Melissa admits to herself that she was so focused on saving Chloe, she didn't consider anything else. She clenches her fist in regret, realizing they were sword fighting right in front of the already overwhelmed child. As Lucian continues to hold Chloe, Melissa approaches and gently apologizes for scaring her. While Lucian promises to do whatever she wants, Chloe looks between him and her mother, asking hesitantly, "Really?" Melissa holds Chloe in a tender, blushing embrace as the two share a peaceful, happy moment. Lucian watches them, flustered, as he recalls his informant reporting that Chloe was supposed to be afraid of Melissa. With sparkling green eyes, Chloe looks up and earnestly asks if they promise not to fight again. Startled by her question, a blushing Lucian and Melissa exchange a flustered glance as he begins to stammer. Chloe begins to cry, covering her face and asking if they are going to fight because of her, prompting them both to frantically promise they won't. Peeking through her fingers, Chloe explains that her mom always said, "People have to hold hands tightly when they make up." She looks up at them with wide, innocent eyes, hopefully awaiting their response. Lucian and Melissa stand awkwardly side by side, their hands pointedly not touching, as an expectant Chloe asks, "Huh?" A small promotional character appears at the bottom of the frame, as Chloe continues to look up with hopeful anticipation. Standing stiffly beside a blushing Lucian, a tense Melissa clenches her fist as Chloe asks if this means they can hold hands now. Chloe's expression saddens as she asks if they were lying, prompting a panicked Lucian to try and explain himself. Thwack! Taking matters into her own hands, Melissa grabs Lucian's wrist and firmly declares that they are holding hands now. With a triumphant smile, Melissa holds up their joined hands for Chloe to see, announcing that this proves they won't fight anymore. Lucian stares down at their intertwined fingers, his face flushing a deep red as he's rendered speechless. Yay! A relieved Chloe jumps into a group hug, happy that her parents have finally made up. Touched, Chloe reflects on the fact that they are both making concessions just for her sake. Suddenly, she has a flash of insight, realizing that she now knows for sure what her special ability is. As chibi versions of the other characters look on with pity, she concludes her power is evoking pity, an idea she finds grossly mistaken. Chloe acknowledges that it might not be a cool power, and won't magically fix her parents' relationship overnight. With newfound determination, she looks from one parent to the other, vowing to solve the problems between them. Her eyes gleaming with purpose, She internally declares her mission to prevent the Great Destruction from the original story. The scene shifts to an ornate room, where an unseen man decides he will be magnanimous just this once. A stern blonde man with a lion's aura declares that if Chloe stays with the Leander family, he will not pursue the infiltration incident. With a wolf's aura behind him, Lucian scoffs at the man's offer, while Melissa defiantly states that no one will steal her daughter. Melissa argues that forcing Chloe to move disregards the child's happiness, but Lucian scoffs at her claim. Holding up a cheap Mana Stone necklace, Lucian questions whether giving Chloe such a crude gift is truly an act of love. He smirks, suggesting that if her paltry effort was her best, perhaps it would be better if the Leander family took care of Chloe instead. Slam! A younger blonde man pounds the table, angrily challenging them to settle things with a duel instead of just sneering. Their argument is interrupted as the older blonde man's gaze drifts to the doorway and he murmurs Chloe's name in surprise. An attendant tries to stop a determined Chloe from peeking into the tense meeting, telling her she can't just barge in. The white-haired man, Ian, looks up from the tense gathering, his eyes widening in surprise as he calls out Chloe's name. Blushing happily, Chloe gazes up at him and calls out, "Uncle!" She leaps into his arms for an enthusiastic hug, exclaiming how much she missed him as he catches her, flustered. The two blonde men watch in shock, with one wondering aloud what's happening since Chloe was supposed to be afraid of them. Chloe comforts a sobbing Ian, telling him to stop crying, while privately thinking she came to the meeting just in case. She observes the tense standoff between Melissa and the blonde man, confirming her suspicion that the atmosphere was pre-war. Deciding it's time to use her ability, Chloe toddles into the center of the tense room. With huge, sparkling eyes, she worriedly asks if she'll be in the way, adding a small whine that she wants to stay. Instantly flustered, the two blonde men blush and look away, awkwardly telling her she can do as she pleases and sit down. Chloe mentally cheers that her amazing power worked, happily running around the room as a chibi. Ian warns her to be careful. Defiantly telling Ian she'll do what she wants, she suddenly notices his exhaustion and exclaims over his intense dark circles. In a heartwarming moment, both Ian and Melissa affectionately pat a blushing and happy Chloe on the head. The younger blonde man watches the tender scene, realizing with frustration that their affection makes his own family look like the villains. Melissa looks confused, stating that House Heiress has never received a single carat of Mana Stones from House Leander. Ian counters, accusing House Urus of actively blocking them from selling Mana Stones by using their influence with the merchant guilds. The younger blonde man from House Urus looks up from his seat, stunned by the accusation. Ian angrily questions their audacity in demanding Chloe after such a vile act, but the older brother retorts that Ian is the one spouting nonsense. The older brother reveals they sent 5 million carats of Mana Stones as requested, explaining his younger brother worked like a slave to meet the quota. In a flashback, the younger brother looks utterly exhausted while processing Mana Stones, brushing off his concerned brother's warning that he'll collapse. He continues to work, thinking that if he pushes himself just a little more, maybe they will finally let him see Chloe someday. A hand clenches as a man's voice questions why someone would claim they never received the Mana Stones. Enraged, the younger blonde brother, Ian, demands to know where all the Mana Stones vanished. Chloe realizes that if House Leander wasn't the enemy, someone else must be pulling the strings, just as a voice yells for them to get out. Wham! Outside the now closed doors, knights argue over Chloe, with one calling the other a Leander dog and declaring Chloe their princess. The older blonde man's green eyes narrow with intense focus. Inside, a thought bubble reveals that the men outside are knights assigned to escort duty. The older blonde man, a Grand Duke, sternly questions the two kneeling knights, one of whom offers a stammering apology for the disturbance. Peeking from a doorway, a startled Chloe looks on with a blush. Chloe runs into the hall, calling out for Brooks. She rushes to the brown-haired knight, Brooks, asking if he's all right, and he expresses his relief that she's safe. Brooks smiles warmly, asking the princess if she has been well all this time. Chloe cheerfully replies that she's been eating and sleeping well, while Ian watches in the background with a stressed expression. Turning her attention to the other knight, Chloe asks Brooks who he was fighting with, surprising the silver-haired man. Chloe correctly identifies the silver-haired knight as Sir Arthur, her escort. She happily explains that she learned his name because she's part of House Leander now, leaving Sir Arthur moved but ashamed of his actions. Humbled, Sir Arthur bows his head and vows to accept any punishment she deems fit. Chloe gently reaches for his hand, telling him it's okay because they were fighting for her sake, leaving him stunned. With a radiant smile, Chloe beams with innocent joy. Overwhelmed with emotion, both Sir Arthur and Brooks gaze at her with tearful adoration. As the knights wipe away their tears and praise her as an angel, Chloe thinks to herself that her problem-solving ability is truly the ultimate power. Ian watches the heartwarming scene, a thoughtful expression on his face. He privately notes that the elite knight's swords lack mana stones, leading him to question if House Eris truly never received them. Watching Chloe interact with the knights, the Grand Duke also grows suspicious, wondering if what he's seeing and hearing could be true. The scene transitions to a grand, sunlit hall with tall, arched windows. The Grand Duke turns to his brother, telling Ian to look at something specific. Ian asks what he's meant to see as the focus shifts to a knight's plain sword hilt. Suddenly, the Grand Duke's eyes widen with a flash of insight. He realizes the knight's weapons have no mana stones, and that they came prepared for war with only ordinary swords. The Grand Duke concludes that their first priority must be to confirm whether House Eris's claim is true. Deciding they need to investigate, he firmly calls out for Mason! A dark-haired attendant named Mason acknowledges the summons and quickly walks away. The Grand Duke instructs Mason to bring him the payment ledgers and the original request letter from House Eris. Mason pauses for a moment in silence. Against a swirling, dark background, Mason agrees to the order. The scene shifts to a peaceful, starry night sky. An ornate door bursts open as an attendant urgently reports that there's trouble. A purple-haired aide rushes into the office, explaining that he was concerned about the important documents the Grand Duke requested. The aide recounts stopping Mason, who is suspiciously heading down a dark passage instead of toward the main building. He continues his shocking report, explaining that Mason suddenly attacked him, and when knights arrived, he fled. As blood splatters across the scene, the aide reveals that when cornered by the knights, Mason took his own life. The Grand Duke and Ian stare in disbelief, with the Grand Duke demanding he repeat what he just said. The aide presents the requested documents to the Grand Duke. As the Grand Duke accepts the papers, the aide reports that they investigated every servant connected to Mason. The Grand Duke's expression darkens as he learns that they had all already taken their own lives. The aide confirms that Chloe and the knights have been moved to the ladies' chambers, the most secure room in the castle. Glancing at the document, the Grand Duke surmises that the servants who died were likely only the exposed spies, and others remain hidden. Enraged, he orders the aide to investigate and uncover all remaining spies and those behind them by any means necessary. The aide agrees, his form surrounded by dark, thorny vines as the Grand Duke looks on with grim determination. Ian hesitantly addresses his brother, looking worried. The Grand Duke tells Ian that the intelligence from their spies in Eris has been consistently wrong, making him question if they can be trusted at all. The blonde man, Ian, looks away with a slight blush, tentatively agreeing that he thinks so. The Grand Duke tells Ian that the people they recruited as spies can't lie, but as Ian agrees, he privately hopes they aren't. The scene transitions with a flourish of the story's title card. Small hands push open grand, sunlit doors as a child's voice cheerfully calls out for her mother and uncle. Dressed in a beautiful blue gown, Chloe waves with a radiant smile. Looking around the luxurious, sun-drenched room, a woman wonders if this is actually Chloe's room. Melissa whispers to her brother Lucian, reminding him they must find evidence of abuse to justify taking Chloe to safety, and suggests they start searching. A hand falls limply as a man's voice sighs in resignation, stating that he knew it. An enraged Lucian holds up a worn teddy bear, disgusted that they would give Chloe such a thing, as Chloe realizes the doll was a gift from Brooks. Melissa stands before a wooden chest with a look of surprise, wondering what's inside. Click, she opens the chest to find it filled with pristine baby supplies, including clothes and shoes. Recalling that no nursery existed when she last stayed here, she wonders who all of this was so carefully prepared for. A knock sounds at the door as a man's voice politely announces his intrusion, addressing the princess. Startled, Chloe instantly recognizes the voice as belonging to Brooks. Peeking through the cracked door, Melissa asks Brooks if he has finished searching everything. Brooks appears in the doorway, looking troubled as he confirms he's searched all the locations listed in the spy's report, but hesitates to continue. With her hand on the door, Melissa anxiously asks him to explain what happened. Her eyes widen in shock as she listens to his report. Brooks reveals he even infiltrated the heavily guarded Mana Stone storage, but found no signs of abuse, leaving Melissa to wonder how there could be no traces at all. As Brooks waits in the doorway, Melissa is left to question everything she's been led to believe all this time. Watching her mother's reaction, Chloe realizes she's finally seeing that the rumors about the Leander family were just misunderstandings. With her eyes sparkling, Chloe feels confident that the conflict between the two families is on the verge of being resolved. The scene transitions to the grand exterior of the Leander mansion. Later, Chloe, now in a pink dress, wears a determined expression as she hurries through the halls. She urgently pulls the Grand Duke and a surprised Ian by the hands, insisting they must go to the meeting room immediately. The two blonde brothers look down at her in confusion, asking what her sudden urgency is all about. Chloe promises to explain once they arrive, assuring them that they won't regret it. The two brothers share a look as Chloe holds their hands with wide, earnest eyes. A soft floral background marks a gentle transition. Giggling with excitement, Chloe happily leads the two Leander brothers down the corridor. They quickly approach the closed doors of the meeting room. The doors swing open to reveal a beaming Chloe, flanked by the two bewildered but compliant brothers. Inside, Lucian glares and grits his teeth upon seeing the Grand Duke, while Melissa asks Chloe why she brought them there. Chloe firmly shakes her head, declaring that what she is about to say is something everyone present needs to hear. With a little grunt, she begins to climb onto one of the large, ornate chairs. Hoisting herself up, she announces that the reason she gathered them all together is this. She proudly presents a large sheet of paper covered in childish drawings. Melissa and the Grand Duke lean closer, peering at the document with puzzled expressions. Chloe proudly explains that since she was sad to see them fighting over her, she created a contract to help them all get along. With a flourish, she presents the paper, formally titled Contract. Her first proposal, illustrated with drawings of a lion and a wolf, is that she will live with each family for 6 months at a time. The third point, shown over a drawing of a crowned princess, states that Chloe will choose where to live permanently when she turns 18. Her green eyes shine with hope and excitement for her plan. Convinced of her own genius, she believes her plan will force the families to interact, naturally resolving their misunderstandings and preventing a war. Her triumphant smile fades into a look of confusion as she senses a sudden, awkward shift in the atmosphere. The room falls into a heavy silence as the adults stare blankly, leaving Chloe to wonder why her brilliant plan has been met with such a weird reaction. The silence hangs in the air, with no one reacting to her proposal. Clutching her contract with a worried expression, she frets that she miscalculated, and that her idea was actually terrible. With a blush, she quietly explains that she just really likes both the heiress and Leander families. The Grand Duke looks on with a serious expression as she finishes, saying she just wanted everyone to be happy and stop fighting. A fist clenches as a woman thinks to herself that Chloe was never the type of child to walk on eggshells. With a worried expression, Melissa gently says Chloe's name. Chloe bows her head apologetically as Melissa looks down at her with a concerned, gentle expression. Melissa reaches out, suggesting Chloe return to her room while they talk, but Chloe firmly refuses. With a determined blush, Chloe insists that she doesn't want the two of them to fight. The Grand Duke and the silver-haired Lucian look on in silence at her plea. Looking resolute, the Grand Duke announces that he will accept Chloe's proposal. Chloe looks up in stunned disbelief, asking what he means. A panicked Ian interjects, questioning if they shouldn't discuss the matter further. The Grand Duke smiles warmly at Chloe and asks her to hand him the contract. With a hopeful blush, a nervous Chloe presents her hand-drawn contract to him. As he begins to write on the paper, the Grand Duke states that he's adding one more condition, puzzling Chloe. Melissa looks on in surprise as the Grand Duke explains the condition will make him feel better. Holding the amended contract, he turns and asks for the heiress family's decision. Melissa angrily snatches the contract from his hand. Pen in hand, she demands to know what condition he added. With a confident smirk, Melissa holds the pen, ready to make her own mark. A new day dawns over the magnificent Leander estate. Lucian blushes as he tells Chloe to call her uncle immediately if anything ever makes her sad. Kneeling to embrace her, he says goodbye, lamenting how quiet the castle will be without her. Chloe looks up at the Grand Duke with a hesitant expression. She startles both blonde brothers by asking if she can invite her uncle to visit sometimes. Twiddling her fingers, she timidly continues her plea, promising to share her food with him. The Grand Duke smiles, warmly agreeing to her request. He then makes a request of his own, asking her to promise to invite him and Ian when she's in heiress territory. Overjoyed, Chloe beams with happiness against a backdrop of bright yellow flowers. The scene transitions past an ornate gazebo, signaling a change of location. Chloe waves goodbye as a grand carriage departs. The Grand Duke gently takes Chloe's hand, smiling down at her. Their hands join as she looks up at him with wide, blushing eyes. His expression hardens as he thinks to himself about his plans for the time being. Now holding Melissa's hand, Chloe looks up at her mother amidst a shower of pink blossoms. Leaning back with a smirk, Ian asks if their business is truly concluded. He's shocked when the Grand Duke declares he'll be one of the escorts, prompting Ian to yell in outrage. Melissa simply smiles, calm and composed, amidst a swirl of red petals. A hopeful Chloe imagines a perfect future, walking hand in hand with both the Grand Duke and Melissa. She dreams of fixing things between her mom and dad, who appear behind her wearing comical, angry masks. Chloe believes her plan will make them clear up their misunderstandings and finally get along. Her hopeful fantasy shatters as she realizes her parents are already arguing again. The Grand Duke offers Melissa a protective bracelet, but she scoffs, refusing to accept anything from him. He insists it's for her as Chloe's guardian, but she dismissively laughs it off, leaving Chloe to realize how bad things are. Watching them argue over a simple bracelet, Chloe wonders how they can be so at odds. The Grand Duke's patience wears thin as he glares at Melissa. Thwack! He slams the bracelet on the table, and Chloe panics, fearing a massive fight is about to erupt. Noticing Chloe's distress, Melissa looks down at her daughter. She calmly reaches over and picks up the green and silver bracelet. To Chloe's surprise, Melissa places the bracelet on her. Chloe stares in dismay at the jewelry, which is clearly far too big for her small wrists. Melissa smiles, declaring that since the bracelet is now Chloe's property, she is gifting it to her. Shocked, Chloe realizes her mother saw through her plan to give her the bracelet, as Melissa calmly calls it a, quote, difference of opinion. Chloe looks down in surprise at the oversized green and silver bracelet now on her wrist. Covering her mouth with a blush, Melissa realizes Chloe's true intention and thinks about how cute she is. Melissa joyfully sweeps Chloe into a hug, as the little girl cheers that her plan was awesome. Melissa instructs someone to bring back matching bracelets for Brooks and Linda, calling them Chloe's guardians too, as the Grand Duke quietly considers the name Brooks. A memory of a happier time shows a brown-haired man laughing with Melissa and Chloe, all dressed in yellow. The Grand Duke's hand clenches into a tight, resolute fist. Looking away with a faint blush, he reluctantly agrees to make their bracelets identical, muttering that it isn't difficult before walking off. The scene transitions past an ornate, gilded doorway. Back in her room, Melissa holds a subdued Chloe in her arms. Chloe looks down sadly at the green bracelet on her wrist. Elsewhere, a meeting is underway as a man is asked about Melissa and Chloe's relationship and if he noticed any signs of abuse. The Grand Duke sits with Ian and a maid, beginning his report on what he observed of their relationship. In a bright memory, Melissa and Chloe, wearing matching blue dresses, lovingly compliment each other. Tapping a document, the Grand Duke states that the situation is strange. Informants reported abuse, but his own eyes tell a different story. He slams his hand down, concluding that the informants gave a false report. With a grim expression, he surmises that the informants were likely in league with the Mana Stone thief. Ian reports that while he wanted to interrogate the traitors, he heard they have all committed suicide. The Grand Duke holds a report, stating they are investigating the traitors' families and will find a lead soon. He glances at a document, preparing to discuss the next step. Ian questions if his brother is sure about his plan, to which the Grand Duke firmly replies that he is. The Grand Duke declares that raising Chloe as the heir to House Leander is a necessary step they must take. The scene shifts to the exterior of a grand, sunlit greenhouse. Chloe excitedly presents the beautiful, flower-filled interior of the greenhouse. A surprised Melissa looks on as a beaming Chloe holds her hand. Chloe explains she wanted to show her mother this place because it's filled with her favorite flowers. Melissa's hand gently brushes against a pristine white rose. She stands quietly among the flowers, taking in the beautiful sight. In a flash of golden light, a blonde man appears, holding a bouquet of yellow roses. Chloe gasps in surprise at the unexpected visitor. The Grand Duke stands there, observing that they are out for a stroll in the greenhouse. He startles Melissa as he approaches her from behind. Melissa turns away with a look of annoyance, refusing to acknowledge him. Chloe, meanwhile, is thrilled by the chance encounter, seeing it as an opportunity for her reconciliation project. She happily suggests they all have a picnic together with the cookies she brought. Melissa declines, telling a shocked Chloe that she's not feeling well and wants to go inside. Panicked that her reconciliation project will fail if her mother leaves, Chloe decides she will be the one to go instead. The Grand Duke gently pats Chloe's head, promising to join next time, much to her surprise. He then turns to Melissa, stating he has a formal request for her attendance at the Continental Assembly. He presents a document, explaining it's a condition for Chloe to continue living in Leander territory. He adds that it's also a condition for Melissa to remain there with her. He explains that her presence will allow Blake to visit more comfortably. Melissa looks on with a strained and unhappy expression. As she clutches her picnic basket, he asks if she doesn't also wish to protect her own land. He urges her to make the right decision for her family's sake, and she lets out a heavy sigh. She reluctantly reaches out and takes the formal document from his hand. Watching them, Chloe feels a spark of hope, believing she needs to lock in the case for them getting back together. Her inner voice questions the plan, wondering how they could be together when they argue every day. Suddenly, Melissa breaks into a bright, charming smile. She confidently links arms with the blonde man, announcing their closeness for all to see. She then whispers to a blushing Lucian to smile, reminding him that Chloe is watching them. To celebrate becoming a family again, Chloe shyly asks her mother to grant her one wish. The scene shifts to a lavishly decorated room filled with ornate mirrors and beautiful yellow dresses on display. Overjoyed, Chloe thinks she must have saved the world in her past life to deserve such happiness. Melissa beams, her eyes sparkling with hearts, absolutely delighted by the dresses. Two maids swoon, gushing over how adorable their lady is and declaring it the best day of their careers. With a close-up on the large green bow on her new dress, a blushing Chloe dismisses their praise as an exaggeration. Dressed in a beautiful green and yellow outfit with a matching bag, Chloe smiles radiantly. From behind a grand closed door, a voice asks if they are ready. The Grand Duke stands tall and serious, dressed in a matching green and gold formal suit. As a hand is offered to her, Melissa looks up with a slight blush after being told the carriage is ready. The Grand Duke quickly pulls his hand back with a blush, realizing he had offered it out of habit. Chloe takes both of their hands, excitedly asking if they're all going to the Continental Assembly together. Wah! Beaming with pure joy, Chloe declares that wearing matching outfits makes them feel like a real family. The Grand Duke and Melissa look down at the happy girl with gentle, slightly awkward smiles. The three walk away hand in hand, a perfect picture of a happy family. An elegant green and gold carriage travels swiftly through a dense, sun-dappled forest. Wow! Pressing her face against the window in awe, Chloe realizes this is her first time leaving the territory while conscious. She eagerly asks the Grand Duke how long the journey will take, and he calmly estimates about 10 minutes. Shocked by the short travel time, Chloe listens as he explains they'll use a long-distance teleportation mana stone. Amazed by the existence of such magic, Chloe wonders what the Eagle family estate, home of the original heroine, will be like. A pillar of bright blue light envelops the window as a tiny, chibi-style Chloe marvels at the incredible teleportation magic. The world dissolves into a brilliant flash of light. The carriage rematerializes amidst the magical glow of the teleportation. Surrounded by a golden aura, the carriage comes to a stop as a voice announces their arrival. Chloe looks out in wonder at the Eagle territory, but suddenly feels a wave of dizziness. Urgh! Chloe clutches her chest as the dizziness intensifies, and a worried voice calls her name. Melissa's face blurs as she looks on in panic. Chloe faints, terrified that she's about to transform back into a rabbit and ruin everything. In a dark, sparkling void filled with crystalline flowers, a desperate voice screams Chloe's name. Huff, huff. Melissa holds Chloe tightly, trying to calm herself by reasoning that dizziness is a normal side effect of teleportation. The Grand Duke watches them with a deeply concerned and slightly flushed expression. Melissa anxiously asks if Chloe will suffer this pain every time, then quickly adds that it should only happen on her first use. As Chloe slowly awakens, she notices the dizziness is already fading, just as her dad predicted. A close-up shows Chloe's wide green eyes as she regains her senses. Held in Melissa's concerned embrace, Chloe weakly reassures her mother that she's fine now. Melissa checks her daughter's temperature, still worried, but Chloe insists with a smile that she's totally fine. Ian quietly asks his brother if this symptom is the one that appears in direct descendants of the Lion family, but the Grand Duke remains silent. The Grand Duke closes his eyes, warning himself not to get his hopes up, convinced Chloe can't be a direct descendant. The scene transitions with a stylized title card marking the chapter's end. The magnificent Eagle family estate, a grand white castle with red roofs, comes into view. A regal stone statue of an eagle stands guard, symbolizing the family's power. The scene pans across the stately stone walls of the castle. An announcer's voice echoes through the grand doors, formally presenting Duke Lucian, Princess Chloe, and Princess Melissa of the Wolf family. A woman in the crowd covers her mouth, whispering that Chloe is the child born with a prophecy. A man nearby whispers back, mentioning the cruel rumors that she is being abused. Chloe stands with a serene, gentle smile, seemingly unfazed by the whispers around her. She thinks to herself with pride that she dressed up much more than usual for the occasion. She turns her head slightly, her expression shifting to one of mild curiosity as she notices the crowd. Looking down at her bracelet for a moment, Chloe then gazes forward with wide, innocent eyes. Struck by her overwhelming cuteness, the gossiping pair are comically shot with Cupid's arrows and agree to stop talking behind her back. As she is led by the hand, a gleeful Chloe thinks to herself that this appearance should help quell the false abuse rumors. The scene transitions into a vast, opulent hall, adorned with gold and crimson. Chloe gazes around the magnificent room, whispering in awe that it's amazing. Her eyes widen in recognition as she spots a familiar figure in the distance. She looks down at the man's shoes and cane, realizing he is from the Eagle family. Lord Sunrise Grevis is formally announced, and Chloe recognizes him as the original female lead's heroic father. A flashback reveals he lost his left eye rescuing a child and gained a limp saving his wife. The narration confirms that in the original novel, he is known as the man with the highest integrity. Completely starstruck, Chloe thinks he's incredibly impressive and is thrilled to finally meet him. From behind the Lord, the young lady of the Greaves family, a girl with bright red hair, shyly appears. The red-haired girl offers a cheerful smile and a wave. Lost in thought, Chloe is snapped back to reality by a voice calling her name. Melissa gently tells Chloe that the meeting is about to begin and suggests she go play outside, much to Chloe's surprise. The Grand Duke sits silently at the table, clad in his formal green and gold attire. Chloe looks on with a slightly puzzled and hesitant expression. Her hesitation vanishes as she breaks into a radiant, joyful smile. Walking away, Chloe recalls that children are normally just introduced and aren't allowed to stay for the main conference. She realizes this is a perfect opportunity to befriend the other children, remembering how other families scorned hers in the original story. She recalls the bitter war between the wolf and lion families, a conflict that no one else tried to stop. Clenching her fists, Chloe thinks with regret that a single mediator could have prevented the continent-wide bloodshed. As she walks with new resolve, a boy's voice off panel wonders who she is. The camera focuses on the long red hair of the young Gravis lady. The red-haired girl waves enthusiastically, inviting Chloe to come and play with them. A tiny Chloe shyly asks if it's okay, and the red-haired girl happily confirms that it is. Sitting together, Chloe thinks to herself that the female lead is just as kind as she was in the novel. The red-haired girl introduces her friends, a blonde named Lily Austin and a brown-haired owl beastkin named Arya. Overjoyed to be making friends, Chloe covers her mouth and lets out a happy laugh. Lily, admiring the weather, shows off a green bracelet that looks identical to Chloe's. After Lily compliments her bracelet, Chloe proudly explains that it has a long-distance teleportation spell on it. Chloe generously offers to give Lily a bracelet as a gift, leaving the other girls stunned by the offer of such a rare item. She cheerfully reassures them, explaining that her dad gave her plenty of bracelets to share with friends. Chloe proudly presents a handful of sparkling, multicolored teleportation bracelets. She beams with pure, unadulterated pride and happiness. The red-haired girl, Diana, looks down at the pink bracelet she was given, her expression clouded as she recalls the rumors about Chloe's abusive parents. Noticing Diana's sad face, Chloe worries that she doesn't like the color of the bracelet. Chloe offers to get her a different color, but a flustered Diana quickly refuses, explaining she wants to give the valuable gift to her mother. Diana lovingly holds the pink magic stone, a color her mother likes, and Chloe is touched by her kindness. As Chloe admires her own bracelet, a boy with dark hair sits alone in the background. Chloe turns her attention to the solitary boy, her expression curious. The boy sits with a stoic expression, closed off from the other children. Chloe cheerfully approaches the boy to offer him a bracelet, but he simply asks what she wants. He coldly rejects her gift, questioning why she insists on pretending to be so happy. Chloe's left utterly speechless. A cold fury rises in Chloe as she clutches her brooch. Annoyed, he keeps repeating the accusation. "I told you it's not true," she says with frustration, demanding to know why he won't believe her. The boy stands and confronts her, retorting, "Then why do you keep lying?" Stunned, Chloe wonders if Zion is strangely obsessed with the idea of her being abused. She recalls his sad eyes from their first meeting, realizing it bothers her to see him this way and wishing he would just ask her for help. As Chloe looks at the sad boy, she sees a reflection of herself and wonders if she's seeing her past self in him. She recalls assuming he'd be loved as the novel's male lead, a hand gently stroking his sleeping head. She realizes this might have been her prejudice, and finally asks Zion why he keeps insisting she was abused. Zion explains it's because she resembles them, the ones he couldn't protect. Startled, Chloe asks who they are as Zion begins to explain his reasoning. Zion stands before her with a solemn and determined expression. A blushing Chloe wonders what he's talking about, and why he wants to protect her after only 2 meetings. In a dark memory, Zion tells a younger Chloe she looks pitiful clinging to affection, as she wonders about his motives. Both clench their fists in frustration as Chloe wonders if something happened to Zion that wasn't in the novel. Before Diana's voice cuts in, telling him not to be ridiculous. Shocked and angry, Chloe grabs Zion by his collar, demanding he explain himself. Overwhelmed, Chloe turns and runs away from the confrontation. The red-haired girl, Diana, calls out Chloe's name in surprise as she flees. Diana approaches Zion with concern, asking what happened between him and Chloe after she heard loud voices. Zion stands silently, his expression unreadable as petals fall around him. He looks down and notices the sparkling green brooch that Chloe dropped on the ground near his foot. He bends down and picks up the beautiful, ornate jewel. Zion holds the brooch, examining it with a thoughtful, slightly flushed expression. The scene transitions to a peaceful, sunlit garden. Inside a carriage, a voice grumbles that those snakes are still desperately trying to avoid breaking off their engagement. Ian complains that they won't accept an annulment letter unless he delivers it in person, deciding he'll just have to go himself. The Grand Duke calmly agrees, tells an aide to send the letter upon arrival, and then calls for Melissa. Startled, Melissa protests, asking why she must go there. A chibi Grand Duke explains they must make it clear their past engagement is void, and Melissa reluctantly agrees with a sigh. Melissa asks about Chloe, then notices a dark aura emanating from her daughter, who is muttering about how to help Zion. She calls out Chloe's name as the girl sits with her head down, consumed by gloomy thoughts. Melissa worriedly asks if Chloe is dizzy again, but Chloe denies it, her expression distressed. With a determined look, Chloe clutches her brooch and asks her mother to listen. She poses a shocking hypothetical. What if a child was being abused by their family, stunning both of her parents? The Grand Duke gently takes Chloe's shoulder, telling her to hold on. Melissa anxiously asks why she would ask such a thing, but Chloe quickly claims she was just curious. The Grand Duke looks on with a serious, contemplative silence. He explains with a heavy heart that even with suspicion of abuse, another family can't directly intervene. Surprised by this, Chloe immediately asks about the Demos family. Ian begins to explain that a special law applies to the Demos family for past wrongdoings involving their children, but the Grand Duke cuts him off. Chloe's eyes widen in shock as she processes this new, dark information. Ian grumbles about being singled out as the Grand Duke gives him a stern look. The Grand Duke simplifies the matter, stating the Demos family was subjected to punishments because of a past wrong choice. He reveals that one punishment allows the Demos heir to be isolated and protected if abuse is found, a phrase Chloe repeats in her mind. Finally understanding, Chloe thanks him for the explanation. A new thought dawns on her, bringing a blush to her cheeks. She remembers that in the original novel, the Demos family's power came from nature and life energy. However, those powers weakened over time, forcing them to draw energy solely from their own bloodline. To create a powerful heir, the family extracted life force from their relatives and concentrated it into one person. The horrible truth clicks into place as Chloe wonders if this is what they did to Zion. Through the reflection in an ornate mirror, she strengthens her resolve to uncover the truth when she visits the Demos house. The scene shifts to a magnificent, sun-drenched white estate. Chloe asks a maid if the Duke is present, only to be told he just left his office. Huff huff. Panting, she arrives somewhere else, desperately asking again if the Duke is there. She continues her frantic search, running through a grand, sunlit corridor. She stops short in a garden, seeing a woman in a blue dress, and thinks to herself that she has nothing to say to her. Ian, a blonde man, looks frustrated as he speaks with Melissa in the garden. Squeezing herself behind a pillar, a tiny, blushing Chloe secretly listens in on their conversation. Ian angrily complains that it's frustrating to see his brother and Melissa just blaming themselves instead of talking it out. Melissa smirks, thinking he admits he was at fault, while Ian's expression turns serious. Ian wonders internally if what she did was truly bad enough to warrant her actions. With her arms crossed, a confused Melissa demands to know what he's accusing her of doing. Ian's voice cuts in from off-panel, bluntly accusing her of cheating, leaving Melissa stunned. He continues his shocking accusation, declaring that Chloe's real father isn't his brother. A stunned "what?" echoes through the air as the revelation hangs between them. Still hiding, Chloe is completely frozen in shock, wondering what she just overheard. A memory surfaces of her father, Duke Lucian, kneeling gently before her as a small child. Another memory shows a blushing Duke Lucian thinking to himself. The memory of Duke Lucian's gentle, blushing smile flashes through her mind. The terrible thought takes root in Chloe's mind. Duke Lucian isn't my real dad. Devastated by the possibility, Chloe sits alone and wonders what she's supposed to do now. As Chloe sulks, a brown-haired man in a uniform approaches from behind, looking surprised to see her. The man, addressing her as young lady, smiles in relief at finding her, while Ian's voice continues ranting, demanding to know who Chloe's real father is. Ian furiously reveals the name, shouting that Chloe's father is the bastard Brooks Lowell. The brown-haired man Brooks freezes in utter shock while Chloe looks on in confusion. A horrified Melissa points out that Sir Brooks is married with a daughter, and Ian retorts that he knows, which is why he was so shocked. Clutching his head in agony, Ian questions how a wolf could have two mates and curses Brooks. Chloe's eyes widen as she recognizes the man before her, gasping his name. Stammering in disbelief, Brooks struggles to process the accusation. Brooks trembles as he confronts a stunned Ian, demanding to know what he's talking about. In a chibified panic, Brooks wails, begging Ian not to say such a horrifying thing. An anger vein pops on Melissa's forehead as she repeats his word with disdain. Horrifying! Filled with a dark aura, a chibi Melissa orders Brooks to get over there, causing him to scream in terror. Chloe smiles awkwardly, realizing that Brooks is absolutely terrified of her mother, and that no one could possibly suspect them of having an affair. She reconsiders everything, wondering if Duke Lucian truly is her father, since it's biologically impossible for a rabbit to be born from a wolf and a lion. She recalls a tender moment when Duke Lucian held her small hand in his. Chloe clutches her brooch, praying that her unsettling guesses all turn out to be false. A familiar voice calls her name, causing Chloe's eye to widen in surprise. She gasps, shocked to hear that particular voice right at this moment. Duke Lucian appears, dressed in a formal blue vest, and asks what all the ruckus is about. The camera pans down his immaculate and sparkling attire. Panicked, Chloe frantically thinks that she can't let her dad hear this conversation, worried he'll get the wrong idea. She plasters on a huge, nervous smile and tries to play along. Pat, Pat. Chloe gently pats her father's arm, suggesting they return to the castle to talk over a cup of cocoa. Duke Lucian looks down, a bit flushed and surprised, but calmly agrees to her request. Sighing with relief, Chloe takes her father's hand and they walk away from the chaotic scene. As they walk, Duke Lucian privately reflects that the spy's report claiming Melissa and Brooks were lovers seems strange and must be reinvestigated. Later, Duke Lucian speaks into a glowing crystal ball, asking for confirmation that Melissa and the knight aren't romantically involved. A voice from the crystal reports that a new investigation confirms Melissa hasn't shared her heart with anyone since her divorce. "All right, I got it," Duke Lucian says, ordering the agent to contact him immediately with any new findings. He slams his fist onto the desk in frustration. Anguished, he realizes Melissa never betrayed him, and questions what all his suffering has been for. He wonders how the previous spies could have possibly reported such false information. As he thinks back, a distinctive star-like sigil appears in his memory. He remembers the spies were from the Hawk family, a clan whose very nature prevents them from telling lies. A vision of Lady Justice and eagles illustrates the Hawk clan's ability to foresee the future, a power that has unfortunately weakened over time. An eagle perches on a statue's shoulder, symbolizing the noble Hawk clan. As a robed statue stands bathed in light, the narration explains that the Hawk clan members are innately incapable of lying. An eye-patch-wearing man and a red-haired woman are shown as it's explained that if they lie, they suffer a curse that makes their body crumble. Duke Lucian sinks into his chair, realizing the spies shouldn't have been able to lie, and now he doesn't know what to believe. A grand, green carriage makes its way through a sun-dappled forest. Inside, Duke Lucian sits stoically with his arms crossed, while Melissa rests beside him with her eyes closed. A tiny chibi Chloe observes that the atmosphere is completely different again today. Suddenly, the carriage jolts to a stop with a loud clatter, and someone cries out in surprise. Chloe's bright green eyes widen in shock at the sudden stop. Pressing her face against the window in excitement, she gasps, "Whoa, is that the Demos castle?" Duke Lucian turns his stern gaze toward his daughter. He calmly confirms that it is indeed the castle of the Serpent Clan, Demos. As their carriage approaches the imposing castle at night, a tiny Chloe whispers, "Wow, even their castle looks terrifying." Looking out at the ominous structure, she worriedly thinks of Zion, wondering if he'll be okay. She clasps her hands together, fervently hoping that nothing bad happens to him inside. The scene shifts to a bright daytime view of the Demos castle, home of the Serpent Clan. A man and a woman stand inside a grand hall as someone approaches them. A black-haired woman reports to a man with a blue brooch that a carriage from the Leander family has arrived. The man smirks coolly, acknowledging the report with a simple, "Is that so?" He and the woman, whom he calls Abigail, stand on a balcony as he directs her attention to something below. In the courtyard below, a flushed Zion struggles to swing a heavy wooden practice sword. Abigail notes, with a detached gaze, that his form is starting to fall apart. The man mentions Zion hasn't eaten or slept, and Abigail suggests he should rest. but he dismisses the idea. Holding up a hand, the man coldly rejects her suggestion, telling her to leave Zion be. He smiles cruelly, thinking of the sacrifices made to strengthen Zion, and declaring that he must endure this much. As Zion continues his grueling training, the man believes this is the way for their family to achieve greatness. The Leander family's green carriage rolls through the castle gates and comes to a stop. From the shadows, the man from the balcony watches their arrival with a sinister smirk. He touches his brooch, preparing to make his move. He and Abigail descend, ready to greet the damned cats who dared to break off their engagement with the Serpent Clan. While training, Zion's head snaps up as he hears a noise from inside the castle. He stares toward the sound, a look of weary anticipation on his face. A single tear falls down Zion's cheek as he stands exhausted, surrounded by a dark, oppressive aura. Chloe sits in a guest room, pouting with her arms crossed, frustrated that she can't do anything to help Zion. Melissa peeks in, telling Chloe to stay and play while the adults talk, but Chloe immediately protests, wanting to join them. A maid cheerfully approaches a pouting Chloe, asking what game she'd like to play. Chloe huffs, telling the maid, Isabel, that she's not in the mood unless she's going to help her. Her expression suddenly shifts as a brilliant idea strikes her. Realizing no adults are watching, she thinks this is the perfect opportunity to sneak away and explore. The maid, Isabel, beams with joy, thinking Chloe's mood has improved and enthusiastically agrees to play. Chloe suggests a game of hide and seek, telling Isabel to count to 500 in the corner while she hides. With a quiet creak, Chloe carefully opens the heavy door to the room. As Isabel covers her eyes to count, Chloe slips out of the room undetected. She hurries down the hall, mentally apologizing to Isabel and vowing to be good later. Walking down a stone staircase, she recalls that she already checked Zion's room and he wasn't there. She deduces there's only one place left he could be, the place he was obsessed with in the original story. In a flashback, Diana asks Zion to come with her, but he refuses, saying he needs to go somewhere else. When she asks where, he falls silent, avoiding her gaze. Before a massive, ominous door labeled Basement Entrance, Zion declares he must go there, no matter what. Now standing before that same door, Chloe blushes, determined to find out why Zion is so obsessed with this place. Believing Zion must frequent this area, Chloe stands before a massive, sealed door, determined to follow him. With resolve in her bright green eyes, she clenches her small fist. Remembering a detail from the story, she searches the stone wall for a hidden switch to open the door. Click! She steps on a specific floor tile, hearing the lock disengage. Following the sequence, she presses a loose brick in the wall. Finally, she pulls a wall-mounted torch to the right, activating the last part of the mechanism. Whoa! The heavy stone door rumbles open, and she marvels that the secret passage actually works. Peeking inside, Chloe smiles proudly, celebrating the perks of being a transmigrator. Her smug expression instantly vanishes, replaced by wide-eyed shock. Before her is a high-tech room filled with glowing green vats, and she gasps in disbelief at the sight. Staring at a massive cylindrical tank, her mind struggles to process what she's seeing. With a look of dawning horror, she realizes she's stumbled into a secret laboratory. Examining a pristine control panel, she notes its cleanliness suggests it was used very recently. A sudden sound startles her, and she freezes, wondering if someone else is here. She cautiously peeks through a small window set in another door. A voice echoes from a dark, torch-lit hallway, promising to wait just a little longer. Gasp! Chloe claps a hand over her mouth, instantly recognizing the familiar voice. Peering into the room, she sees Zion trying to break the chains on a cell door, promising to get someone out, and she wonders who he's talking to. Her gaze falls on the heavy padlock, and her eyes widen in sudden shock. Inside the cell, an injured child wrapped in bloody bandages is slumped against the wall, and Chloe is horrified to see him locked up. Her breath catches as she realizes the shocking truth. The captive boy looks exactly like Zion. Startled by the sound of a crate toppling over, she loses her balance. Alerted by the noise, Zion turns around in surprise. He spots Chloe, who has fallen onto the stone floor. Stunned, Zion asks what Chloe Eris is doing in such a place. Blushing nervously, Chloe claims she got lost while trying to find her way. Pointing to the cell, she asks about the kid who looks just like him, but Zion urgently tells her to leave and not tell anyone what she saw. He gravely warns her that if she stays, she could be in danger too. Chloe looks down, considering his words with a serious expression. Ignoring his warning, she asks if he can't just break the lock, earning an exasperated sigh from Zion, who asks if she didn't hear him tell her to leave. Clenching her fist, she starts to protest, determined to help. A sudden movement from inside the cell makes her gasp, The injured boy, Zion's double, sits by the bars, examining the lock. He quietly explains that the padlock is sealed with special magic, so Zion won't be able to open it. The phrase special magic gives Chloe a sudden, brilliant idea. Reaching into her small purse, she tells Zion it seems he forgot something important about her. She triumphantly reveals a glowing purple magic stone, reminding him she's from a family of magic stone artisans. A powerful blast of fiery magic erupts from the gemstone. Whoosh! The intense energy melts the padlock, shattering the magical seal instantly. With the door unlocked, Chloe asks Zion if anyone else is trapped here. Zion confirms it's just the one and helps his double to his feet, telling Chloe they need to escape the estate, and she readily agrees. The rescued boy's eyes flash with a sinister purple light. Suddenly, he grabs Zion from behind, who cries out in surprise, asking what he's doing. A pained cry escapes as dark energy flows from the contact. Zion looks back in confusion, his hand now burning red as he asks what's wrong. Hearing the commotion, Chloe turns around in alarm. Her eyes widen in terror as she screams Zion's name. The double is now choking Zion, his face twisted in rage as dark power swirls, snarling about how much he suffered. With a demonic glint in his eyes, he declares that Zion will now suffer the same fate. Gulping for air, Zion desperately claws at the hand, constricting his throat. Shudder. Surrounded by dark thorns, a terrified Zion clutches the glowing blue gem at his throat. Zion remains frozen in shock, the strange gem glowing ominously on his collar. Chloe rushes forward with purpose, calling out Zion's name in alarm. Grabbing his arm, she demands to know what was put on his neck and orders an unseen person to let him go. She gives a defiant wink, fiercely telling the unseen person to stay away from Zion. Zion angrily shoves her away, sending her stumbling backward with a cry of pain. Lying on the floor, Chloe realizes in despair that she's not strong enough to stop him on her own. Noting how unwell Zion looks, she desperately wonders what she's supposed to do now. Clenching her fist, she decides that she can't just stand by and do nothing. With sudden resolve, she grabs a nearby wooden chair. Thwack! She smashes the chair over Zion's back, causing him to cry out in pain. Zion collapses to the floor, groaning as he clutches his head. Panicked, Chloe rushes to his side and anxiously calls his name. She frantically asks if he's okay, realizing his condition has worsened ever since the collar was placed on him. Examining the gem, she identifies it as a magic tool and vows to find a way to remove it for him. A sudden whirring sound startles Zion as a strange machine in the background begins to glow. An unseen person suddenly grabs her legs and she yelps, demanding to know what they're doing. Horrified, Chloe sees Zion trapped behind a glowing green glass wall, calling his name in disbelief. Another black-haired boy at a control panel remarks that he didn't expect her to crawl in herself. Chloe asks why he's doing this, thinking that Zion had tried to save him. The boy coldly explains that because of Zion, he and his brothers were treated like dogs, and now Zion must pay for his sins as he activates the console. No, Chloe cries, realizing with absolute terror that he started the machine. In the chaos, a beautiful jeweled brooch falls from her dress onto the stone floor. The boy at the console is momentarily confused by the object, telling her to stop her useless stun tactics. Kaboom! The brooch erupts in a massive, fiery explosion, shocking him completely. Stumbling from the blast, he furiously demands to know who dares to interfere with his revenge. With a shadowed, angry expression, Chloe tells him he's the one acting insane because Zion wanted to help him. Clutching her brooch, which now holds a new gem, she points at the chamber and commands him to open the door immediately. The boy refuses, tormented by the memory of how many of his friends are dead. He suddenly collapses to the floor, leaving Chloe completely stunned and confused. She cautiously approaches him, wondering with dread if he suddenly died. Beep? A strange noise sounds as the machine activates, and Chloe wonders what's happening. As an invisible force pulls her back, Chloe struggles against it, vowing to save Zion. Pounding on the chamber door, she desperately pleads for it to open as Zion is engulfed in red, chaotic energy inside. She realizes with dawning horror that she's used up the bomb magic stone from her brooch. From within the glowing chamber, Zion weakly tells Chloe to go back, warning her that the area is dangerous. He explains that the encasement is unbreakable, even against powerful bomb magic stones. Crying, Chloe presses her hands to the glass, refusing to leave and promising she'll find a way to save him. Zion looks at her gently, telling her that she has already done enough to help. He tells her not to feel guilty and to return to her parents, then slumps back against the wall. A memory of Zion, in a clean, formal uniform, flashes through her mind. As Zion's hand slowly slides down the glass, a single tear escapes Chloe's eye. Thud. His head gently hits the glass where her hand rests, and she begs him not to die. She turns away, filled with a new resolve, thinking she has to get help right now. She freezes mid-step, a sudden, terrible realization dawning on her. She stares at the entrance, which is now completely blocked by rubble from her own explosion. Trapped, she frantically scans the room, desperately wondering if there's any other way out. Her eyes widen as she spots a small, glowing hole in the rockfall. Her expression hardens as she clenches her fist, ready to take her chance. Inside the chamber, Zion thinks to himself that despite everything, he's thankful. The scene shifts to a silent, ornate hall where the narration reveals that the handmaidens had searched for Chloe for an hour. A frantic Duke Lucian says they can't find Chloe, as the maid Isabel apologizes profusely, taking the blame. The man with the blue brooch, Lord Demos, calmly reassures them that she'll be found soon enough. Grabbing Lucian's cravat, Melissa warns Lord Demos to be prepared for the worst if Chloe has even a single scratch. Lord Demos feigns concern, promising to locate her quickly while internally calling them stupid cat fools. He tells the Leanders that finding the princess is the priority, and their discussion about the engagement annulment can wait. A tiny white rabbit with striking green eyes tugs on a cloth, prompting the holder to wonder, "A rabbit?" The unseen person questions why a rabbit would be wandering around their castle. In a flash of light, Chloe appears in a child's form wrapped in a sheet, realizing her transformation worked. Lord Demos lets out a sharp "ha" as the image of chains flashes, signaling a sudden, dark realization. With a sinister grin, he deduces that the Leander princess is actually a rabbit beastkin. Chloe runs into her mother's arms, crying for help, as a shocked Melissa asks what happened to her clothes. Dismissing the question, Chloe reveals that Zion is trapped in a basement lab, causing Abigail to flinch in the background. As Chloe grabs her sleeve, a startled Abigail pulls her hand away, asking who is trapped. She finishes her question, demanding to know who is trapped and where. The chapter title is displayed against a dark, sparkling background. The scene shifts to a view down a dimly lit stone staircase. Standing before a massive door, Abigail drapes a shawl over her shoulders and orders everyone to step back. Kaboom! She unleashes a massive explosion that blasts the heavy door off its hinges. The smoke clears, revealing the glowing green, high-tech interior of the hidden laboratory. Melissa stares in horror at the strange machinery, wondering what in the world this place is. Eek! Duke Lucian recoils in disgust before pointing frantically and shouting, "Over there!" Chloe points toward a green glass chamber, calling out Zion's name as she sees him slumped inside. Abigail stares with wide-eyed shock at the scene before her. Crying out, Chloe runs toward the strange machine holding Zion. Her hand moves quickly toward the machine's control panel. The machine powers down with a soft whir. The boy from the console gently holds an unconscious Zion, realizing they need to get him to a doctor immediately. Abigail rushes past a surprised Chloe, moving toward Zion. Chloe notices her mother's shaken expression and worries that Zion might be in critical condition. Determined, she tells her mother she's going to check on Zion now. Lord Demos steps in her way, telling Princess Chloe to wait a moment before she leaves. With a sly smile, he proposes a deal, asking her to forget everything she's seen in the basement. In return, he promises to keep quiet about the fact that she is a rabbit beastkin. Stunned, Chloe realizes he must have seen her transform, but defiantly asks what nonsense he's talking about. Duke Lucian glares furiously, calling the claim that his daughter is a rabbit beastkin an absurd statement. Melissa snarls at Lord Demos, questioning how he dares to threaten them using their daughter. Chloe looks up at her mother, who has stepped forward to protect her. Lord Demos taunts Princess Melissa, calling her bold for someone who tainted the divine oracle. He pauses ominously, holding her attention with a single word, but. Grabbing her by the collar, he threatens her entire family with destruction if she doesn't accept his deal. A sword suddenly appears at Lord Demos' throat. Duke Lucian glares with cold fury, warning him to stop spouting nonsense. Lucian threatens him with another incident for the council, but Lord Demos holds up his hands, feigning innocence and saying he doesn't want to fight. Melissa declares with contempt that he is no longer worth speaking to. Turning her back, she challenges him to report her, confident her name will be cleared while his hideous deeds will be exposed. Duke Lucian takes Chloe's hand, gently telling her it's time to leave. He stands firm, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, silently daring anyone to stop them. Lord Demos watches them go, thinking they've made a regrettable decision but that he has a plan B. He smirks coolly to himself, deciding their fate is no longer his concern. He gloats internally, believing he's now found a critical weakness in both the wolf and lion families, placing them in the palm of his hand. A dark, ornate frame appears, heralding that things are about to get interesting. The scene settles on a pair of elegant, gold-trimmed doors in a luxurious room. Thud. A butler with brown hair sets a wooden box down, his expression somber. In bed, a feverish Zion sweats as a thought reveals his condition could have been fatal. A worried Chloe watches over him, whispering his name in concern. A woman with dark hair clenches her fist, her face shadowed with anger as she confronts a blonde man. She glares down at him, demanding to know what he just said. The blonde man looks back defiantly, declaring they can't leave a child with his abuser. A smirking, dark-haired man questions the accusation, asking if the Continental Council has made an official verdict. Clenching his fist, the blonde man angrily retorts that they don't need a verdict after discovering the lab, calling the man a shameless child abuser who dismisses his words. Chloe gasps in alarm at the escalating argument, crying out Zion's name. From his bed, Zion weakly opens his eyes and tells everyone to stop. Startled, Chloe turns to him, confusedly asking what he's saying. She grips his blanket, desperately questioning why he wants to stay in a place that torments him. The dark-haired man smiles triumphantly, declaring that his son himself wishes to stay. Zion weakly asks them to please respect his wishes and leave. Chloe grabs his shirt, insisting that he's lying and that she saw everything. She vividly recalls the tortured boy in the cell, declaring she saw a child identical to Zion being brutalized. Trembling, she argues that Zion won't be safe here and questions how they could possibly abandon him. Her parents, a blonde man and a silver-haired woman, look on in shock, whispering her name. With tears streaming down her face, Chloe defiantly announces that if Zion isn't leaving, then she's staying too. She stands firm before the silver-haired woman, repeating her vow to stay by Zion's side. Her thoughts drift to the terrible ordeal Zion endured at Demas Castle. She remembers how Zion worried only about her, pushing her to safety instead of protecting himself. A new resolve forms in her mind. Now it's her turn to protect him. With determined, teary eyes, Chloe looks back toward Zion's bed. Leaning close, she grips his covers and begs him to say it again. She pleads with the silent Zion, asking if he truly wants to leave this place too. The dark-haired man interjects, telling the silver-haired woman that Zion needs stability and to stop pressuring him. He offers to let her send a trustworthy person to watch over the boy instead. Another dark-haired man calls out to a woman named Abigail, who retorts that Zion must stay in their territory for treatment. Abigail explains that the Leander territory likely lacks a doctor who can treat the snake-kind, stunning Chloe into silence. Chloe's father places a comforting hand on her shoulder, promising to assign trusted knights to guard Zion. With a sad and defeated expression, Chloe quietly agrees. The ornate doors swing shut as the visitors depart. Alone in the room, Zion turns his head on the pillow. He opens his bright blue eyes, a slight blush dusting his cheeks. He internally asks Chloe to wait just a little longer, admitting he still has things he needs to do there. The scene transitions to a wide shot of the grand Demas estate at night. A hand gently places a small, rabbit-like doll next to a sleeping Chloe. Her mother, Melissa, peeks into the room to check on her. The small doll rests peacefully beside the slumbering girl. The camera pans across Chloe's quiet, well-appointed room. With a heavy heart, Melissa quietly closes the door. Lucian looks up and asks about Chloe's condition. A different blonde man asks Lucian if Chloe is doing well. Melissa sits down wearily, explaining that while Chloe's injuries are treated, she's extremely weak from crying. A hand clenches into a fist, crushing the arm of a chair in suppressed rage. The dark-haired official's face darkens with menace as he curses the Snake family bastards, remarking that he always knew they were shady. He expresses his shock that they were secretly committing massacres once again. The blonde man Zion thinks that while the Snake family's actions are outrageous, his first priority is to bring a certain child to their home for protection. His expression hardens with steely resolve, his green eyes focused on the task ahead. His hands clasped tightly on the table over a glowing seal, a sign of his unwavering commitment. He thinks of the child, wishing for him to stay safe and healthy by Chloe's side. Another blonde man worries about the complications of bringing in a child from another family, but Zion confirms they'll prove House Demos' wrongdoing. Before continuing, Zion interrupts, turning to a woman with long, light blue hair to clarify something with Melissa. His expression turns sharp and calculating as he prepares to address the claim being made by House Demos. He asks Melissa directly if Chloe is a rabbit beaskin, and her shocked yellow eye shows she is completely caught off guard. A flustered Melissa admits she was also unaware of this, and was confused when Demos first brought it up. She recalls seeing young Chloe's own embarrassed reaction, which seemed to confirm the accusation was true. However, her demeanor shifts to one of confidence as she declares she can swear to the truth. Holding a hand to her chest, Melissa firmly declares that she absolutely did not commit any kind of fraud. Zion listens to her passionate declaration in silence, his expression unreadable. He sighs, concluding that either way, they must prepare for the fallout from this revelation. He explains that if their enemies use Chloe's lineage to accuse them of violating the Oracle, it will trap them in a dispute. The other blonde man grows anxious, questioning how they could possibly provide proof when a paternity test alone won't be enough. A hand reaches out across the table toward Zion as someone calls out to him. Melissa smiles confidently, announcing she has a solution and asking to handle the issue herself. After a moment of thought, Zion covers his mouth and quietly agrees to let her proceed. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit hall, setting the stage for a formal proceeding. The man with the eye patch gazes forward with a single, glowing red eye, uttering a decisive, "Well then." He stands before a grand assembly, announcing the start of the trial regarding the illegal acts of house demos. A man with black hair immediately raises his hand, addressing the judge to interject. He declares that before the trial begins, there is a critical matter that must be verified first. He testifies that he personally saw Chloe transform into a rabbit beast man, and an image of a tiny white rabbit appears. As a blushing, annoyed Chloe looks on, the man demands that those responsible for such a blasphemous act be punished first. Wham! He slams his fist down, furiously arguing that the prophesied child being a rabbit is a direct violation of the prophecy. Another noble leaps to his feet in agreement, shouting that Melissa Eris has defiled the prophecy's name. Bang! The judge's gavel strikes, calling for silence before he turns his piercing gaze on Melissa Eris. The judge demands an answer, asking her directly if her daughter is truly a rabbit beastman. After a tense silence, Melissa lowers her head and quietly confirms, "Yes, it's true." Chloe looks up, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief at her mother's confession. A single, heartbreaking tear forms in the corner of her wide green eye. Looking at her mother, she whispers a pained and confused, "Mom?" Melissa places a hand over the brooch on her chest, her expression firm as she begins to make a declaration. She stands tall and confident, surrounded by an aura of golden light and ethereal flowers, ready to speak. An observer in the gallery remarks on the unbelievable sight of a rabbit caught between wolves, wondering what proof she could possibly present. From her seat, Chloe watches her mother's back, whispering her name in a small, worried voice. Now standing beside a man in a green coat, Chloe looks up at him with wide, anxious eyes. A man with light blue hair stands and announces firmly that his younger sister, Melissa, has committed no wrongdoing. Presenting a document to the judge, he explains that their ancestors of the prophecy all had special abilities, which their records will prove. Another noble objects, calling the claim far-fetched, and questioning how being a prey animal like a rabbit could ever be considered a special ability. Chloe flinches as his cruel words hit their mark, her expression filled with shock. She gasps, blurting out, "Well, wait a moment." Chloe speaks up, arguing that even if she can't hunt, she can do other things, as a man with black hair listens impassively. She proudly asks if he didn't see how brave and amazing she was, but his cold expression remains unchanged. Another man interrupts, telling Lady Chloe to stop the nonsense about her supposed abilities. The black-haired man scoffs, telling her to finish her tantrum, as the trial will end in their victory regardless. "We're not done presenting our evidence," her uncle declares, cutting through the man's dismissal. He steps forward with a calm smile, carrying a small, ornately carved box. A man reveals a glowing orb in an ornate box, identifying it as the Aruz family's ancient treasure, the artifact of truth. Lucian flinches, his thoughts racing in shock at the mention of the legendary artifact of truth. As a hand touches the orb, a narrator explains that if one tells the truth, the artifact does nothing. Melissa confidently steps forward, declaring she has a method and asking to handle the matter herself. Lucian clenches his fist, realizing Melissa is staking her very life on this gambit. With quiet determination, Melissa places her hand upon the glowing artifact of truth. A brilliant light emanates from the orb as Melissa maintains a calm, serene expression. Onlookers murmur amongst themselves, concluding her story must be true, since the artifact isn't reacting to her testimony. Melissa offers a small, confident smile, her composure unwavering. Seated nearby, Chloe watches her mother with a proud and adoring smile. Melissa gives a subtle, knowing glance to the side, a hint of strategy in her eyes. An aide whispers to the judge with the eye patch that he has something to say, while Melissa feels a sudden strange premonition. The judge with the eye patch announces that he has finished reviewing the evidence submitted by the Aruz family. He then calls for the opposition witness to enter immediately, and Melissa turns in surprise. A cloaked figure steps forward, apologizing for the delay, and explaining they rushed to testify. The mysterious witness makes their way through the tense room. The figure explains they only recently learned about the case. Approaching Melissa, the figure asks to step forward, startling her as she demands to know who they are. The witness, a red-haired man, lowers his hood, introducing himself as a Grevis and a personal witness to Melissa's transgression. He holds the glowing orb aloft, its light shining intensely. A white-haired nobleman erupts in anger, questioning the proceedings and demanding they just use Chloe's beastkin status as proof. As the witness holds the artifact, onlookers gasp, recalling the curse placed upon the Grevis family. A murmur spreads through the crowd that the Grevis family is cursed to have their bodies melt if they tell a lie. Another noble shouts that because the Grevis witness used the artifact safely, it proves Prince Neros tampered with it, leaving Melissa stunned by the absurd accusation. Blushing in distress, Melissa looks to Lucian and calls his name, her hand clutching her dress in anxiety. The judge with the eye patch slams his desk, loudly proclaiming his own innocence and feigning confusion about the artifact's inaction. He smirks, thinking to himself that everything is proceeding smoothly, just as his master predicted before the trial. In a flashback, the same man stands before a twisted tree, reporting that the lion family plans to take Zion to their territory. A giant snake appears, calling him a fool for not simply using the fact that Chloe is a rabbit beastkin. The snake's voice explains that with Chloe as leverage, they can secure the sacrifice and eliminate both the Aruz and Leander families. The man, now revealed as Sunrider Grevis, looks up and obediently answers, "Yes, master." The great snake gives its final command. He is to frame Melissa Aruz for infidelity. The shadowy master then asks Sunrider if he is capable of carrying out such a delicate task. Sunrider smiles with wicked confidence, assuring his master he understands and will personally see to every detail. A chess piece is placed on a board, symbolizing the end of the strategic flashback. Back in the present, the red-haired witness smirks between a shocked Lucian and Melissa, his testimony having turned the tide. Sunrider Grevis grins maliciously from the judge's seat, thinking his plan is perfect now that the artifact is neutralized. Trapped by dark, thorny chains of accusation, Melissa looks on in disbelief as Sunrider's thoughts mock her. The situation is grim. The ancient artifact has been rendered useless, and a witness from a credible family has testified against them. Sunrider mentally taunts his opponents, smugly wondering how they could possibly reverse their fate now. Again, Melissa is shown ensnared by metaphorical chains as Sunrider's thoughts call out her name in triumph. Chloe watches in horror, remembering divine agents are cursed to be truthful, as an angry voice shouts, "Look, didn't I tell you?" A dark-haired nobleman glares with righteous anger, convinced of Melissa's guilt. The crowd erupts, with one man yelling she already defied the oracle, and another declaring her words untrustworthy even with an artifact. A nobleman demands Duke Leander speak, accusingly asking if he truly believed a rabbit beastman was his daughter. Chloe covers her face in distress, desperately thinking that her mom couldn't possibly have lied. Clutching her chest, she panics, wondering what will happen to her if the terrible accusations are true. She looks toward her father, the Duke, and a horrifying thought enters her mind. Does he also think she isn't his real daughter? Her fear intensifies as she imagines the worst. He plans to get rid of her. Just then, Lucian gently reaches out and takes her small hand, startling her from her dark thoughts. Lucian, the blonde Duke, stands with a grimly determined expression. A shocked Chloe looks on in disbelief, uttering a confused, "What?" A pair of dark, lace-up boots take a purposeful step forward. As Lucian walks past, Chloe watches from behind with a worried look. Melissa calls out, urging her brother to wait as she follows him. Another blonde man whispers to Lucian as they stand side by side, both silent and serious. Lucian glares ahead, his face a mask of cold, controlled fury. He strides forward, his back turned to the room as he proceeds with his plan. The red-haired witness, Sunrider Grevis, looks up in confusion, asking what's happening. A hand suddenly grabs the front of Sunrider's cloak. In a swift, shocking motion, Lucian slices through Sunrider's arm. The crowd erupts in screams and panicked shouts, with one spectator exclaiming that the Duke just cut off the witness's arm. Lucian calmly speaks over the chaos, telling everyone to wait. He looks down at the severed limb on the floor, recognizing that it's not what it seems. Holding up the prosthetic, Lucian reveals the deception. The man placed a fake arm on the artifact. He explains that the artifact only reacts to living flesh, as Sunrider clutches his real arm in shock. The crowd murmurs in disbelief at the audacity of a divine agent from the Eagle family pulling such a trick in a sacred tribunal. Placing a hand on the trembling man's shoulder, Lucian commands him to testify again. He coldly demands Sunrider place his real body on the artifact this time, as the witness grunts in frustration. Cursing his failed plan, Sunrider collapses to the floor in defeat. Melissa and the others watch the dramatic turn of events, while the judge with the eye patch remains seated. As the judge slams his gavel, a spectator wonders how this could happen when the Eagle family is supposed to be incapable of lying. The judge considers the possibility that Sunrider intentionally wore the prosthetic, knowing the artifact would be used. Clenching his fist, the judge declares that the court will take a short recess. The scene shifts to a serene and sunlit castle courtyard filled with flowers. Chloe stands alone in the quiet courtyard, her head bowed in thought. She reflects on the shocking revelation that a Grevis family member, a divine agent, would resort to such deceit in court. Walking through the garden, she realizes the original story she knew never mentioned the Eagle family hating the others. Suddenly startled, Chloe looks over her shoulder with a blush. Her mother, Melissa, stands there with a gentle, reassuring smile. As Melissa approaches, Chloe steps back, insisting that she's fine. Chloe nervously turns her head away, a light blush still on her cheeks. Melissa gently takes her daughter's hand and softly asks when she first awakened as a rabbit. She asks why Chloe kept it a secret for so long, reassuring her that she isn't trying to scold her. Melissa tells her that it pains her to imagine how much she must have struggled alone, and Chloe listens silently. Looking up, Chloe reminds her mother that she saw it too, prompting a confused Melissa to ask what she saw. Chloe looks down, hesitating to speak about the moment her beastman nature was revealed. She recalls the angry nobles declaring her a beastman and accusing Melissa of tarnishing the prophecy. Stunned by the implication, Melissa asks Chloe what she just said. Chloe thinks to herself that something about the situation feels too strange. With tears welling in her green eyes, Chloe looks at her mother with dawning realization. She flinches, a sudden thought striking her as she understands. Melissa immediately pulls her daughter into a comforting and protective embrace. Closing her eyes, Melissa holds Chloe tightly with a serene and loving expression. Nestled in the hug, Chloe looks up at her mother, her expression filled with emotion. Melissa's hand gently touches the brooch on Chloe's collar. As Melissa blushes with emotion, Chloe's eyes widen, finally understanding a hidden truth. Wah! Overwhelmed with emotion, Chloe bursts into tears of joy and hugs her mother back. Crying happily, she reaffirms her identity with conviction. I am my mother's daughter. From behind a nearby pillar, Zion peeks out, secretly watching the heartfelt reunion. With his arm in a sling and a bandage on his cheek, Zion offers a small, shy smile from behind the pillar. A startled Chloe lets out a small cry as her mother, Melissa, pulls her into a tight, protective hug. Lucian, the blonde duke, approaches with a gentle and composed expression. He asks if the meeting was too frightening, but as Melissa hides her face, Chloe insists she was fine. Melissa silently debates with herself, admitting she doesn't want to talk to Lucian but knows she should thank him for his help. Her thoughts are interrupted as she looks up, her face flushing with surprise. Melissa suddenly excuses herself to prepare for another meeting, leaving a confused Chloe wondering what's happening. As Melissa hurries away, Chloe reaches out and calls after her mother. Chloe finds her mom's sudden departure embarrassing, while Lucian watches them with a pensive look. Her attention is drawn back to Lucian, as she nervously asks what he wants to give her. He holds out a beautiful golden brooch, adorned with green gems and delicate chains. Lucian smiles warmly as he presents the gift to her. He explains the brooch is a magic stone that can store a set of clothes, showing illustrations of an eagle and a snake with similar jewels. Lucian teases that this will prevent her from turning curtains into clothes again, causing Chloe to blush in mortification over her past aspiration. Touching his chest, he makes a heartfelt promise to be there for every part of her life from now on. Chloe looks up at him, her cheeks flushed, touched by his sincere vow. Her small feet fidget nervously as she stands before him. Overwhelmed with emotion, Chloe clasps her hands together at a loss for words. She suddenly exclaims how amazing the Mana Stone is, catching Lucian by surprise with her excitement. As Chloe beams with delight, Lucian smiles, pleased to see her so happy, while she thinks it's still too awkward to thank him properly. The mood shatters as a furious declaration echoes, "This is all a setup." A Demos family member denies ever abusing Zion, while elsewhere, a court official relays the verdict. The family must forfeit half their assets. A man with black hair solemnly declares that the Demos family's right to name an heir is now permanently revoked. As the man who passed judgment walks away, a white-haired man watches him go from a side room. Seated and reviewing a document, the white-haired man addresses someone as His Highness Blake Aruz. Zion stands before him, his arms still in a sling, holding a stack of papers. Blake Aruz looks up, recognizing Zion Demos from Chloe's story, but his attention is caught by the documents Zion has brought. Zion smiles politely, expressing his hope that the documents will prove useful. Blake reflects on the papers, realizing they contain enough damning evidence to completely destroy the Demos family, an impossible feat without immense effort. He notes with suspicion that the final page was torn out, but concludes that with this evidence, the Demos family is finished. The head of the Demos family reels in shock, wondering in horror where his opponent could have possibly obtained such information. The scene shifts to the imposing Demos estate, home of the House of the Serpent, standing tall against the night sky. Zion quietly opens a pair of ornate doors, his small figure silhouetted in the opening. His shadow precedes him as he steps into the grand empty hall. Looking around his former home, Zion thinks to himself that there is nothing left for him to pack. A sudden question, nothing at all, makes him whip around in surprise. Before him stands Lady Abigail Demos, matriarch of House Serpent, holding a small black teddy bear. She silently offers the teddy bear to her startled son. Zion looks at the familiar black bear with its simple blue ribbon. A memory surfaces of a stern voice, telling a younger Zion that such a toy is unbefitting of the Demos heir. He realizes with a pang that this is the teddy bear his father took from him long ago, which he had assumed was thrown away. Zion holds the returned bear, his expression a mixture of shock and quiet emotion. Blushing, he timidly asks his mother if he can write to her from the House of the Lion. He bows his head deeply, awaiting her response. His mother replies coolly that his new guardian will be stronger and have fewer weaknesses than her. She tells him to take the bear, insisting he leave nothing of himself behind as he starts his new life. Zion gives his mother a final, deep bow of farewell. He turns and walks away, leaving her standing alone in the vast room. Lady Abigail watches him go for a moment, before turning her back and disappearing into the darkness of the estate. An ornate carriage waits outside a magnificent castle, ready to carry Zion toward his new future. Two young men bicker. The ashy-haired one complains about his companion, who retorts that he's there for backup. Their argument is interrupted by a young black-haired boy with an arm sling, who asks if they're done talking. The silver-haired man offers a hand to help the boy into a carriage, but he is coldly told to forget it. Confused by the boy's dismissive attitude, the silver-haired man shares a puzzled glance with his companion. An elegant green carriage waits amidst lush trees, ready for the journey. The scene reveals a box filled with an assortment of beautifully crafted cookies. Beaming, the ashy-haired boy happily presents the cookies and a jar of milk as a gift. The black-haired boy flatly rejects the gift, leaving his companion stunned and deflated. He explains that Lady Chloe prepared the gift herself, which makes the boy, Zion, hesitate. Zion cruelly suggests throwing the gift out for animals to eat, causing the ashy-haired boy to gasp in outrage. Threateningly, the ashy-haired boy declares he'll tell the lady exactly what Lord Zion said about her useless gift. The silver-haired man watches the drama unfold, wondering what the boy's problem is. Zion clenches his fist while his companion internally panics, picturing a heartbroken Chloe crying for days. Fine! Giving in, Zion reluctantly snatches the box, declaring he'll eat the cookies. With a cookie in his mouth, a flustered chibi Zion asks if everyone is happy now. The ashy-haired boy smiles, completely satisfied with the outcome. Zion eats a cookie with a crumb on his cheek, his expression shifting as a thought suddenly strikes him. Their carriage arrives at a grand, magnificent white mansion. Holding the box of cookies, Zion looks on thoughtfully, his mind on himself and Chloe. The scene shifts to a dark, menacing place as a voice ominously asks, "You failed?" A man with red hair apologizes before a massive, scaly tail strikes him, making him cough up blood. Lying defeated, the man pleads for his master's mercy as the voice calls him a pathetic failure. Ha! The red-haired man gasps for breath, blood dripping from his mouth. The master demands life force from test subjects be brought to him, and a terrified subordinate agrees. The injured man walks away with his cane, leaving the shadowy chamber and its monstrous occupant behind. The creature laments that its body is beginning to break apart again. A reptilian eye snaps open, blaming its condition on that bastard, Lucian Leander. It flashes back to a memory of Lucian interfering in a battle, preventing its victory. It believes it would have won the trial without his meddling, but vows its time will come soon. The serpent notes that Zion Demos will soon be fully grown, then commands nearby flowers to fall into its mouth. With its massive jaws wide open, the serpent roars, calling Zion Demos its one true hope. The scene brightens, shifting to the sunlit grounds of Leander Castle, where a little girl with light blue hair is overjoyed. A chibi version of the girl, Chloe, excitedly asks the stoic Zion if he thinks Leander Castle is cool. She then proudly declares that her own Eris Castle is just as amazing, promising to show it to him later. Zion is suddenly greeted by a beautiful woman with light blue hair and an elegant blonde man. The blonde man looks down kindly at Zion, who appears nervous and avoids his gaze. A deep blush covers Zion's face as he shyly looks away from the man. The scene shows a happy family portrait of two blonde men, the woman, and a brightly smiling little Chloe. A voice echoes through the grand hall, calling out for someone to stop running. A blushing Chloe peeks out from behind a pillar, while Zion watches her from just behind. They've arrived at a luxurious and opulent guest room decorated in gold and white. Crossing her arms with a smug grin, Chloe turns to an unimpressed Zion and asks what he thinks. Focusing on the blue gem at his collar, Zion begins to speak Chloe's name. He bluntly calls her taste lame, criticizing the blanket's bright color and leaving Chloe utterly shocked. Mortified, Chloe apologizes, stammering that she didn't realize her taste was so bad. With tears in her eyes, she explains she was just excited he was coming, which seems to surprise Zion. Zion says nothing, turning away with a faint blush on his cheek. Chloe offers to have the maids change everything, but Zion tells her to forget it, as it's already set up. As he speaks, Chloe's tear-filled green eye widens in surprise. Wah! Her tears of sadness instantly transform into a bright, overjoyed smile. In a grand hall, a voice wonders if they're being treated like kids, while another exclaims that they are, in fact, still kids. The scene shifts to a vast, beautiful castle under a starry night sky. A young boy with black hair sleeps fitfully in a large bed. Sweating in his sleep, the boy has a nightmare, blaming himself as Zion Demos for some past failure. A haunting voice in his dream calls him a monster, blaming him for not being strong or trying hard enough. The voice continues, calling him a monster that survived by devouring its own kind as his hand clenches the sheets. Declaring he doesn't deserve a normal life, the voice torments him until he whimpers an apology. As he thinks it's his fault everyone is gone, the voice screams for Zion Demos to just die. The scene cuts to a young, light blue-haired girl with wide, shocked green eyes. Gasp! Zion awakens with a start, blushing as he sees Chloe and calls her name in disbelief. Leaning over him, Chloe looks down at a blushing Zion, who is lying in bed. Zion asks how she got past the guards, and a smiling Chloe reveals that her room is right next to his. She explains that she heard him groaning with her good rabbit ears, and, sensing he was in danger, transformed to sneak in. Touching his forehead, a flustered Zion tells her his nightmares are none of her business. With a determined grin, Chloe pulls his blanket over herself, demanding he share. Hey, Zion shouts in protest as she dives under his covers. Flustered, Zion admits to himself that this unfamiliar place is making him uneasy. Chloe snuggles into the blanket, blushing happily. Zion falls silent, looking down at her beside him. He quietly tells her to go back before morning, so no one worries, but she promises to leave before he wakes up. Chloe boasts he won't have nightmares with her there, but Zion dismisses it as nonsense. She quietly resolves to stay, knowing he's still sick. Zion lies awake, blushing as he looks at Chloe, who is now fast asleep beside him. The morning light streams into a grand, empty hallway, signaling a new day. Melissa looks around with a shocked expression. A nervous maid explains that she went to call Chloe for breakfast, but she wasn't anywhere in her room. Duke Lucian and Melissa exchange a worried glance. A cute, green-eyed white rabbit sits with a curious expression. Lucian, Melissa, and the maid all gasp, realizing in horror that she might have turned into a rabbit and escaped. Melissa suggests calling for Ian, but Lucian decides they should look around first. They approach a slightly ajar, ornate door. Peeking through the doorway, the two parents see something inside. Lucian raises a finger to his lips, shushing a stunned Melissa. Melissa beams with delight, realizing it's that Ian guy with her daughter. They watch as Chloe sleeps peacefully, snuggled up against Zion. Tick-tock. In another lavish room, a clock marks the passing time. Elsewhere, Duke Lucian reviews a report from his aide. The report concerns spies who infiltrated the lion and wolf houses. He smirks, reading that the spies all committed suicide after being exposed. The document reveals a sinister figure named Sandrider Grievous, who smiles menacingly. The narration explains this happened because the spies from both houses were connected. They had all sworn allegiance to House Grievous in a secret pact. In exchange for their loyalty, House Leander provided them with mana stones, and House Grievous provided some other form of power, symbolized by a chained staff. After the deal, House Leander used the Grievous spies to monitor other noble houses. However, a cracked mirror indicates the plan ultimately failed. Back in the present, Lucian scoffs that the spies were useless and decides he needs to find out what really happened. He reads that the previous heads of House Leander and Eris died prematurely, an uncommon fate for Beastkin. Gripping the report, a dark suspicion begins to form in his mind. He calls for his aide, who appears and addresses him as Your Grace. Lucian orders his aide to investigate all other territories and report back on every single incident. With a grim expression, the blonde-haired man looks up from his work. A powerful command echoes in the darkness. Bring me everything. The scene shifts to a vast, sun-drenched hall in the opulent estate. Phew. In bed, Chloe sighs in relief, glad she wasn't caught. She recalls sneaking past a sleeping Zion before settling down beside him with a soft laugh. Chloe nervously clasps her hands together under the covers. She recalls the sinister face of Sandrider Grievous, suddenly suspecting that his family's reputation for honesty might be a lie. A wave of embarrassment washes over Chloe as she hides her blushing face. Still flustered, Chloe clutches her long, light blue hair. The scene opens into a magnificent, sunlit library filled with countless books. Peeking through a doorway, her parents watch her with loving smiles. In his office, a man with blonde hair smiles fondly at a locket. Chloe sits with a sketchbook, looking up in surprise at the man. Confused, the blonde-haired man asks why she wants him to watch her. Holding a pink crayon, Chloe wonders how she can eavesdrop on the office without raising suspicion. An idea strikes her as she begins to draw. Recalling what the attendant said about the coolest person in the territory, she proudly presents her drawing of a crowned, spiky-haired man, proclaiming him her role model. Stunned and flattered, the blonde-haired man covers his mouth, blushing uncontrollably. An aide enters to find the blonde man tossing a paper in the air, and he quickly agrees to his master's unspoken command. Blushing but determined, the man declares he wants to make that guy writhe with jealousy. Holding her drawing, a confused Chloe realizes her simple plan is spiraling out of control. The blonde man strikes a series of confident and dramatic poses. Fully embracing his new title, Chloe breaks into a nervous sweat, realizing what she's unleashed. Leaning in, her uncle offers to demonstrate the cool way to hold a pen, much to Chloe's delight. Thinking she successfully managed the situation, Chloe beams with relief. Her expression freezes as she senses something is deeply wrong. Watching from afar, Duke Lucian fumes, realizing his brother is so caught up in being a role model that he's completely stopped working. An aide approaches Ian, Chloe's uncle, with requested data, but Ian dismisses him with a frustrated sigh. Overhearing the conversation, Chloe perks up at the mention of the Grievous family in a disputed region. Ian's expression turns serious as he questions why the Marquis himself delivered the information. The gray-haired Marquis explains he came personally to request data on a battle from 3 years ago. After thanking the Marquis, Ian watches the old man depart. He walks over to a large bookshelf and firmly pulls on one of the volumes. The bookshelf swings open, revealing a secret passage leading down into a dark, sparkling abyss. Chloe stares in wide-eyed wonder at the secret entrance. She excitedly runs toward her uncle as he stands at the top of the stairs. Amazed, she asks if it's a secret base, but Ian explains it's an ancient archive for the direct Leander lineage, connected to the Archduke's office. Ian adds that the archive holds vital records that must never be lost, built after a fire destroyed the originals. The Marquis appears behind Chloe, sternly informing her that she is not allowed inside. He clarifies that only the official heir of the Leander lineage may enter, causing Chloe to gasp. The Marquis gives them a cold, unwavering stare. Stunned, Ian protests that Chloe is the only heir, but the Marquis, whom he mistakenly thought was named Connor, corrects him, stating, "No, not yet." A nervous Chloe wonders about the heir selection trial he mentioned. She asks the man, Lord Roman, what the trial is, and he explains it's a hunting competition to determine the official successor. He reveals a unique rule. All children under 10 can participate but must do so in their beast forms. Chloe is horrified by the sudden realization that she will have to compete transformed. In her mind's eye, she sees herself as a tiny, vulnerable rabbit, forced to compete in a dangerous hunt. Roman notes that a non-Leander has never won before, trailing off with an ominous "but." As Roman confidently predicts the outcome will be the same, Chloe silently vows that she will not give up. With newfound determination shining in her eyes, Chloe points a thumb to her chest. ready for the challenge. A servant cheers for Chloe, while she puffs her cheeks out and agrees that everyone should cheer for her. Lord Roman's expression darkens as he addresses Lady Chloe with a sinister smile. He internally scoffs at the rabbit, talking big, deciding he'll have to teach her a lesson. An end-of-chapter credits page features a cute illustration of Chloe. Roman tells Chloe it will be the same this time, but her determined face shows she thinks otherwise. A sleepy Chloe stretches as she gets ready for the day. A maid helps Chloe into a blue plaid dress. Worried, Chloe wonders if a rabbit like her can really win against beasts. She steels her resolve, knowing she needs the information to prevent a war. Chloe calls out to her maid, Isabel, who looks back in surprise. Pat! Chloe tugs on Isabel's sleeve, asking if she really thinks she can do it. Blushing, Chloe fidgets nervously as she awaits an answer. Isabel, with cat ears and a tail, assures a rabbit-eared Chloe, who apologizes for a past incident. Another maid chimes in, reminding Chloe how she escaped her room unnoticed, and Isabel agrees she can definitely do it. Filled with renewed hope, Chloe smiles brightly, clasping her hands. She clenches her fists with determination. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit dining hall prepared for a meal. Standing by a table laden with lobster and other fine foods, Chloe looks on in awe. Her eyes sparkle with excitement at the impressive feast. Melissa gushes over how adorable her daughter looks, while Duke Lucian smugly thinks she deserves a reward. Chloe happily explains that everyone picked the dress together and asks if this is a special occasion since they're all eating together. Zion sits silently at the table, looking serious. Chloe compliments Zion on his nice outfit, realizing everyone was trying to help him adjust. A blushing Zion turns away, murmuring that she looks pretty too. Leaning forward, Chloe asks him what he just said. Zion quickly denies saying anything, leaving a confused Chloe to shrug it off. A beautiful spread of food covers the table. As the family eats, Lucian and Ian laugh together. Zion quietly places a piece of meat from his plate onto Chloe's. She firmly grips her silverware, but then freezes. A ghostly aura surrounds Chloe as she stares in horror at the food on her plate. Eggplant. She panics, wondering what to do since her mom will scold her if she leaves vegetables on her plate. Zion discreetly spears the offending eggplant with his fork. He whispers, just this once, as he takes the vegetable off her plate. Wah! Overjoyed, Chloe thanks Zion, telling him he's seriously awesome as he looks away, flustered. He tells her to just pass the eggplant over, and she happily agrees. Eek! A voice calls her name, and Chloe freezes in terror. Melissa smiles menacingly, asking her adorable daughter if she's pushing vegetables onto her friend. Gasp! Chloe frantically denies it, claiming Zion likes eggplant, while Zion looks equally panicked. Across the table, Lucian and Ian share a hearty laugh at the children's expense. Ian tells Chloe that if she wants to grow up like her uncle, she has to eat her eggplant too. Lucian sighs, exasperated by the role model act again, while Ian recalls how he always ate his eggplant as a kid. Lucian sternly tells his brother to stop spouting nonsense, saying his daughter is not seriously ill. An angry tick mark appears on Ian's forehead as he glares at his brother's comment. A brilliant idea strikes Chloe. This is the perfect chance to bring up the heir selection. Ian gloats at his brother, exclaiming that he told him so. Taking a deep breath, Chloe nervously begins to explain her intentions. She stands up and makes a grand announcement to the table. With conviction, Chloe declares she wants to become the head of the lion family. Chloe finishes her grand announcement, declaring her desire to enter the successor selection trial, leaving a stunned Lucian to ask, "What?" She internally admits she doesn't truly want to be the family head, but felt saying she just wanted to be the heir would sound strange. Lucian sternly shuts her down, stating that she is too young and the hunting tournament is far too dangerous for her to participate. Chloe argues back, pointing out that her father participated when he was 6 and another child competed at only 5 years old. A slightly flustered Lucian insists that even so, the hunting tournament is filled with wild beasts and remains too dangerous. Zion, listening quietly, recalls the mandatory protective magic stones that allow participants to instantly return to base if they are in danger. Chloe continues her argument, insisting that since it's a tournament for children, they don't hunt truly dangerous beasts anyway. Melissa interjects, saying that no matter what, Chloe is a rabbit, but then stops herself, realizing her mistake. Crushed by her mother's words, Chloe turns away in disappointment. She glances back, her expression a mix of hurt and frustration. With a sharp sound, Lucian slams his hand on the table, silencing the room with a single word, "Enough." Standing with a grim look, he tells Chloe they will discuss this again later, his tone leaving no room for argument. His face cast in shadow, Lucian's anger creates a palpable tension as Chloe and Zion watch in silence. A shaken Chloe looks up at her father's imposing figure, nervously whispering, "Dad?" The scene shifts to an empty training hall, lined with weapons and practice dummies. Ha! In the training hall, Zion swings a sword, panting from the exertion. He continues to practice his swordsmanship, his breath catching in his throat. From the side, Chloe watches him train with a look of surprise. Zion recalls the cutting remark about Chloe being a rabbit. Lying on the floor, he wonders how she could even think of competing against predators with such a weak body. A memory of a younger Zion shows him standing alone in a vast, ethereal space filled with white roses. A voice instructs him to extend his arm a little more while holding his sword. An instructor stands behind Zion, adjusting his posture as he practices. Two men in uniform arrive, with the brown-haired man cheerfully greeting Zion and noting his swordsmanship practice. As the silver-haired man comments that Zion is too young for a real sword, Zion coldly tells them to mind their own business and get lost. Whoosh! Zion ignores them, unleashing a powerful swing with his sword. The silver-haired man notes that most kids can't even lift a real sword, while the brown-haired man marvels at how skilled Zion is. The brown-haired man observes that Zion's skill is comparable to an official knight's, but notes that while his piercing move is effective, Zion executes another sharp, determined swing, his face set in concentration. The man internally worries that Zion's arm won't last if he keeps using that form, wondering if it's the Demas family style. Pat. A gloved hand suddenly lands on Zion's shoulder, startling him. The brown-haired man corrects Zion's form from behind, telling him to raise his elbow, prompting Zion to angrily ask what he's doing. The man explains that Zion's current stance, while effective, puts too much strain on his arm and increases the risk of injury. Following the advice, Zion is surprised to find his shoulder and arm feel much more relaxed. He blushes, flustered as he realizes the correction actually helped. He stubbornly insists it doesn't matter, arguing that all that matters is beating the opponent. The brown-haired man gives a knowing glance over his shoulder. A blushing Zion watches him, clearly conflicted. The man cheerfully offers to teach him more, causing Zion to become even more flustered and annoyed. A chibi Zion angrily yells at him to butt out, insisting he'll figure it out on his own. The silver-haired man sighs, commenting on his companion's habit of teasing. Stomping off, Zion declares he's practicing elsewhere, while the brown-haired man cheerfully calls out that he practices there every day. As a fuming Zion continues to walk away, the man waves and loudly talks to himself again, further irritating the boy. The silver-haired man warns his friend that he's going to be hated, but the brown-haired man insists this is how you get close. His friend bluntly reminds him that's how he ended up a divorced dad, leaving the brown-haired man fuming. The scene transitions, focusing on a brightly lit window with white curtains. Back in her room, Chloe pouts with her arms crossed, regretting having spoken up so hastily about entering the competition. She worries that her dad is now disappointed in her because of her outburst. Her thoughts are interrupted by a strange noise as she notices a glowing blue orb floating in her room. A face suddenly appears inside the orb, shouting in surprise and startling Chloe. Through a glowing blue orb, Chloe sees a white-haired boy who declares he can't bear to see her get hurt in the Lion Clan's air competition. Her shoulders slump as she sadly concludes that her uncle doesn't believe in her either. Pow! Her expression shifts to one of wide-eyed shock and determination. A thought begins to form, cut off abruptly as the scene focuses on the glowing orb. Exasperated, Chloe turns away from the communication orb on the table, exclaiming, "GG's!" The white-haired man in the orb closes his eyes and swears on the honor of the Wolf Clan. Chloe listens intently, a soft blush on her cheeks. Her blush deepens as she continues to listen to his words. She raises a hand, acknowledging that she knows it's not that he doesn't believe in her. She explains it's because she's a fragile herbivore, prompting her uncle to try and correct her misunderstanding. Chloe looks down, her face still flushed with emotion. Her eyes widen in surprise as she looks at the glowing orb before her. Her uncle looks down at her reflection in the orb, softly saying her name. He recalls how she boldly struck back at the head of House Demos. A memory shows a younger, smug-looking Chloe after her defiant act. The narration concludes that she was brave enough to protect herself. Her uncle smiles warmly, filled with pride as he gazes into the orb. Chloe's face lights up with delight as she clasps her hands together. A voice from off-screen laughs, booming, "Of course I am." The uncle's face appears in the orb, panicked, as he recalls how Melissa came at him as if she wanted to kill him. With a sigh, Chloe feigns indifference, saying she wasn't expecting much anyway, as a dark aura surrounds the orb. A voice calls out her name from behind a grand door, asking if she's inside as it clicks open. Startled, Chloe turns as her mother's voice asks to be let in. Melissa enters with a bright smile, asking if Chloe was still on the call with her uncle. Wham! Feeling betrayed, Chloe thinks of her uncle as a traitor, while her mother places a hand on the orb, calling her sweet. Chloe looks up nervously as her mother accuses her of recruiting her uncle to try and persuade her. She stammers, trying to find the right words to explain herself. A fearsome wolf-like shadow looms over a trembling Chloe, whose rabbit ears droop in terror. Her mother playfully taps her on the head, causing Chloe to cry out, "Ouch." Rubbing her head, Chloe looks up at her mother in confusion. Melissa turns away with a knowing, confident smirk. She then announces that she will give Chloe her permission to enter the air competition. Stunned, Chloe can only stare in disbelief at her mother's sudden decision. A thought bubble reveals that Melissa understands their reasons for not wanting her to participate. Still, she relays Chloe's own words to her brother, that she would rather fight than forfeit just for being a rabbit. Her uncle smiles warmly through the orb, agreeing it would be cooler for her to fight, even if she loses. Melissa turns to her brother, acknowledging that she knows Chloe is a rabbit. Clenching her fist, she struggles with her emotions for a moment. Her brother's hand reaches out from the orb as he reminds her that they both want Chloe's happiness above all else. He urges her to trust Chloe, and with a thankful blush, Melissa quietly agrees. The communication ends, leaving the orb resting among glowing flowers. An adorably furious Chloe stands before the now inactive communication device, demanding to know what just happened. A voice panics from off-screen, begging Melissa to put down a sword. Melissa dismisses the chaos, telling a confused Chloe to just say her uncle persuaded her. She takes Chloe's hands, her expression softening into a warm and loving smile. Chloe looks up at her mother, her face flushed with surprise and emotion. Elsewhere, Zion watches with a stern, observant expression, his arms crossed. The scene shifts to a slightly older Chloe with pigtails, looking down with a shy smile. The moment fades into a quiet, peaceful silence. Chloe sits across from the blonde man at a large table, fuming with a dark purple aura of frustration. A younger blonde man exclaims in frustration, telling his brother to be serious. The younger man begs his brother, Ian, to let Chloe go, while she realizes she needs to get his permission properly. Chloe nervously presents a paper, explaining she isn't just asking him to say yes. Ian looks down at the paper she's holding out, his expression one of mild surprise. Gasp! Chloe blushes, realizing her carefully prepared document is now completely crumpled. Her handwritten note promises that, first, she will not get injured under any circumstances. Her second promise is to immediately use a magic stone and return if the situation becomes dangerous. She declares that she'll follow all the rules and has already secured permission from her uncle and mother, leaving Ian stunned. With a hopeful blush, Chloe looks up at him, awaiting his decision. She clenches her fists, admitting that she knows it might seem like she's just whining. Her thoughts reveal her deeper desire to live there for a long time. Ian considers that he needs to be recognized by the beastkin of the territory. Thump! Hearing his thoughts, Chloe clutches her chest, startled and blushing. A close-up shows her hand pressed against her heart. He clarifies his hesitation isn't because he doesn't trust her or would be disappointed by the outcome. He looks away, admitting softly that she is just too precious to him. He looks down at her with a gentle, blushing smile. Completely flustered, Chloe asks if he really feels that way. He takes a pen in hand, ready to give his approval. Tap! He signs the permission slip, which includes the names Lucian Leander, Melissa Eris, and Chloe Eris. He tells a blushing Chloe that they will share the responsibility for the tournament's outcome. Her wide, green eyes sparkles with hope and excitement. Ian smiles warmly, pleased with their agreement. The scene shifts to a sunlit stone corridor. Chloe nervously crumples the signed permission slip in her hands. Still blushing, she looks down at the crumpled paper. She now understands that he tried to stop her before because he was worried about her safety. Ian looks on with a warm and relieved smile. Overcome with emotion, Chloe hugs the precious document to her chest. She turns a corner and stops, wondering if someone is practicing their swordsmanship. Beaming with joy, she starts to call out for Zai to share her great news. She finds Zion, who is intently focused on his sword training. She hesitates, looking down at her crumpled paper with a blush. Ah! She thinks to herself how handsome he is, just as a protagonist should be. Her thoughts drift to the names Zion and Diana. Zion suddenly appears right in front of her, making her jump in surprise. She stammers his name, startled by his sudden appearance. Recovering, she excitedly shows him the paper, announcing she got permission to join the successor selection match. Zion responds with a simple, "I see," prompting a disappointed Chloe to question his lukewarm reaction. She looks at him, holding the paper, slightly hurt by his lack of enthusiasm. He asks why she'd think he'd be surprised, stating that she always follows through on her promises. He explains that he's here now because she kept her promise to help him. Stunned by his words, Chloe looks up at him with wide, green eyes. Her eyes sparkle as a deep blush spreads across her face. Zion looks down at her with a serious and sincere expression. Flustered, Chloe turns away from him, her heart pounding. He notices her red face and asks if she's feeling okay. Whap! She quickly hides her face behind the paper, claiming she's just a little tired. He gently touches her shoulder, and she wonders what he's doing since it's not even 7 yet. She nervously wonders what's wrong with her as she stands anxiously. Her heart pounds in her chest as she clutches her fist, flustered and overwhelmed. Startled, she suddenly realizes she's lost and has gone the wrong way. A glowing official notice appears, confirming the date and location of the event. A question hangs in the air regarding the direct descendant of someone named Leander. The conversation turns to the descendant's nature, revealing she is apparently a rabbit. Whispers spread as people gossip in disbelief, considering the implications of this revelation. With sinister smiles, a couple realizes this news gives their children a chance to claim the Lion Clan's heirship. A small creature named Pedro is told to watch carefully as he is held up to see something. An older man points to a wounded deer, telling a hesitant Pedro that it's not dead yet. The man explains the brutal necessity of inflicting a fatal wound to prevent prey from escaping. The man instructs the crying Pedro to bite a vulnerable area, but the young creature finds it too scary. A voice commands him not to hesitate, and Pedro squeezes his eyes, shut in fear. A woman's voice cuts in, desperately pleading with her father to stop. Stepping forward, she points out how much Pedro is trembling from the ordeal. She warns her father-in-law she won't stand by, but he coldly challenges her threat. He scoffs at the idea of her returning to her family, revealing he knows their dire situation. She flinches as he cruelly exposes her family's gambling debts and inability to care for a child. Defeated and humiliated, she lowers her head in silence. He orders Pedro to take a short break before resuming the brutal training, and the small creature sadly complies. As he leaves, he warns the woman that in the end, she is destined to lose everything once more. In a brighter scene, servants cheer enthusiastically for Lady Chloe, shouting words of encouragement. As a rabbit, Chloe expertly navigates an obstacle course with speed and agility. A maid joyfully announces Chloe is 3 seconds faster, and Chloe celebrates her new record. The maid lifts Chloe, eager to move on to trap handling practice next. She demonstrates a net trap, instructing Chloe to pull a rope as soon as the prey enters the grove. Hiding in the bushes, the maid whispers instructions before announcing the prey is coming. A large cheetah unknowingly approaches, its paw hovering right over the trigger rope. With a mighty heave, Chloe pulls the rope with all her strength. Success! The net springs upward, ensnaring the startled cheetah in its mesh. Held in the maid's hands, Chloe stares in wide-eyed shock at her successful capture. Beaming with pride, Chloe celebrates her impressive catch, while the maid looks on in amazement. Thinking this is exciting, Chloe struts proudly, feeling confident she can handle any beastman. Overcome with emotion, the staff cry tears of joy, one declaring that this moment feels like heaven. When called for the next training session, Cassie the maid has fainted from excitement, leaving Chloe confused. Her father's sudden appearance terrifies the attendants, and Chloe realizes with a jolt that he's here. He gently asks if she's all right, and she assures him she's having fun with her training. He watches with a warm smile as Chloe affectionately rubs against his leg. He tenderly places a small golden treat on her head as a reward. A magical blue light envelops Chloe as her green eyes sparkle with delight. He continues to watch her with a fond, gentle expression. Holding up her glowing brooch, he reveals it's a Lion Clan prototype for interspecies communication. Poof! A cloud of smoke erupts, and her father looks on, startled by her sudden transformation. Now in her human form, Chloe laughs nervously, surrounded by the fading smoke. Blushing, she looks up with her brilliant green eyes. Her father looks at her with a proud, loving smile. He affectionately pats her on the head, catching her by surprise. A blonde man kneels before a small, blushing child with white hair, gently patting her head with a kind smile. The blonde man smiles warmly, noting that the child has definitely grown. A group of nobles looks on as a hand holds up a small, blushing white rabbit with brilliant green eyes. The adorable white rabbit smiles, showing off a beautiful gold and green gem necklace. A woman watching from afar points in surprise, asking if that's a rabbit. The crowd murmurs, recognizing the child as the heir of Leander, revealed at the trial. Another voice confirms that the heir of the Demos family has also been brought. A silver-haired man and woman watch with stern expressions while others gossip below. Ahem, two women awkwardly decide to go over to the children, walking away from a silver-haired man. The blonde man from earlier kneels before the little white rabbit, who asks if he has something for her. He presents a bag full of sparkling jewels, and the rabbit gasps, recognizing them as magic stones. He places a jeweled headband on her, calling it a protection magic stone, and she thanks him. The blonde man carefully places an ornate, multi-gemmed necklace around the little rabbit's neck. A second man watches in surprise as the first presents a massive, jewel-encrusted crown. Boo-ha-ha! Overjoyed, the little rabbit lets out a mighty laugh while sitting in a huge pile of treasure. Later, a concerned white-haired woman looks toward the blonde man. In the forest, the white rabbit runs playfully alongside two leopard cubs. Ha! The white-haired woman lets out a weary sigh. The blonde man touches his chin, realizing with a sweat drop that he hasn't checked if the magic stones are working. A silver-haired man tells his anxious blonde companion that not every forest is dangerous, and it's time to let go. The white-haired woman skeptically repeats his words, while someone else complains about his restlessness. The silver-haired man appears behind her, startling her as he insists the hunting ground is safe. The anxious blonde man runs a hand through his hair, while Scion watches with a stoic expression. Scion calmly observes the adults, wondering why everyone is so worried. The scene transitions with a bright, decorative title card. The white rabbit waits patiently on a rope net, thinking her visitors should be showing up soon. She internally declares her goal for the day, to catch 3 eagles. With a determined glare, the little rabbit prepares for the hunt. Ugh, tastes awful. Lying in her trap, she spits out some bait, lamenting a herbivore's slim chances before starting her plan. An eagle flies right into the net, and the rabbit smirks at its perfectly executed trap. She lets out a triumphant laugh, delighted with her cleverness. Growing impatient, the rabbit sighs, complaining that she's bored to death waiting. Suddenly, her ears perk up as she notices something approaching from above. A bird's silhouette appears in the sky as she excitedly realizes her target is here. Get it together, Chloe. She steels herself, planning to pull the trap just before the bird snatches her. As a large hawk dives, she reminds herself to execute the plan just as she practiced. She begins a tense countdown as the hawk gets closer. 1 second. The hawk's talons are inches away from grabbing the rabbit bait. With a sudden snap, the trap is sprung. The hawk is instantly tangled in the net, struggling furiously against the ropes. Safe on the ground, the little rabbit watches her captured prey with a look of mild surprise. She pulls on a rope, tightening the net around the angry, trapped bird. Holding up a glowing pink magic stone, she activates it to magically secure the trap. Both Chloe in her human form and her rabbit form hold the glowing pink gem, shocked by their own success. I really did it! She celebrates with a happy dance, amazed she succeeded in a rabbit's body. As a white rabbit in a lush forest, Chloe proudly inspects her net trap, holding a small pink gem. In a memory, a white-haired boy with bright green eyes smiles warmly while holding a pink gem, a small white rabbit perched on his head. Back in the present, Chloe leaps gracefully through the trees. The scene transitions through the sun-dappled green forest. A large cheetah's paw steps into view as a voice wonders about that rabbit. A group of young feline beastmen discuss the situation. One wonders what weapon the rabbit chose, and another replies it looked like a trap. PFFT. The cheetah scoffs at the idea, finding a mere trap utterly ridiculous. He laughingly mocks the rabbit's intelligence, suggesting its brain is no bigger than a walnut. One of the tiger-striped cats looks up, startled and intrigued. A gray cat with sparkling eyes excitedly asks if Lord Chandler, the cheetah, is serious about their plan. Yeah, so hurry up and move, Chandler commands, and the 3 cats dash off into the woods together. Chandler smirks, thinking to himself that while alliances are forbidden in the competition, rules are meant to be broken. Deciding not to fall behind, he sets off to hunt a deer on his own. Whoosh! He stops dead in his tracks, alerted by a sudden sound. He looks back to find his 2 companions knocked out cold on the forest floor. WH, what the? He gasps, his eyes wide with disbelief and shock. He cautiously advances, senses on high alert as he searches for the source of the attack. WH, what are you? Who the hell are you? He screams into the darkness, terrified by the unseen threat. He recoils in terror, his mind reeling as he recognizes the attacker's familiar form. Wham! A powerful unseen force strikes with incredible speed. Thud! Chandler lies defeated on the ground, his eyes spiraling from the knockout blow. A tough-looking white rabbit with a scar on his face scoffs, calling the defeated felines idiots. He commands a group of shadowy creatures to find Chloe Leander, declaring he has a debt to repay. The scene shifts to a dark, menacing vision of chains and thorns. In another part of the forest, Chloe's trap has successfully snared a large eagle. Yahoo! Chloe cheers, striking a triumphant pose after catching the eagle. She smugly watches the struggling eagle, thinking that she's no ordinary rabbit. Her celebration is cut short as her eyes widen in sudden realization. She spots a deer dashing through a clearing. A small, tan caracal beastman gives chase, identified by a voice as a caracal. A silver-haired man introduces his companion as Pedro Myers, grandson of a marquis, while Chloe muses that it's a lovely day for hunting. Determined not to be outdone, Chloe decides to challenge Pedro in the hunt. She resolves to lure the eagle once more to secure her victory. She turns in confusion as Pedro is suddenly struck and knocked aside by an unseen assailant. A familiar, powerful silhouette flashes before her eyes, leaving her wondering what she just saw. The scarred rabbit questions the predator's actions, while Chloe, mid-bite, is stunned to see another rabbit has taken down a beastman. He explains the beastman was just knocked out, leaving the others to marvel at how a weak rabbit could hunt a wild beast, as Chloe trembles in fear. The scarred rabbit asks where their target is, and a nervous Chloe, hiding in a bush, hopes they aren't talking about her. His companion states they must catch Chloe Leander before sunset, and Chloe tries to convince herself they can't possibly be looking for her. Dark energy radiates from both Chloe and her human form as they panic in unison. The scarred rabbit peeks around a bush, continuing his search. He and Chloe come face to face, her cheeks flushing as their eyes meet. The scarred rabbit turns away with a look of grim determination. He flips Chloe upside down, causing her to cry out in embarrassment that her plan is ruined. While holding her aloft, the scarred rabbit says hello, as another rabbit excitedly shouts that he's found Colon. The scarred rabbit, Colon, turns away blushing after his inspection. Realizing she is outmatched, Chloe clutches her magic stone, desperately pleading for its help. She lies dazed in a field of flowers, surrounded by other rabbits. Looking up with wide, blushing eyes, she hears a voice say they've been searching everywhere for her. A small, cute rabbit gives her a hug, leaving a flustered Chloe to wonder what's happening. A white-haired girl in a blue dress fondly recalls finding a small, white baby bunny back when she was in the wolf territory. In a flashback, the young girl throws a dramatic tantrum on the floor in front of her parents. A voice explains that because the family didn't want to eat rabbit meat, they ordered all rabbits in the castle to be released for their safety. In her rabbit form, Chloe is shocked by the sudden realization that her uncle may have been involved in something illegal. Fuming with anger, she declares her intent to go and beat him up right now. A large white rabbit explains to a smaller one that it was an understandable mistake for the heiress family to catch his child, who couldn't transform into a human yet. Surrounded by other rabbits in a peaceful grove, one of them smiles with pure contentment. The rabbit continues his story, explaining that his wife had an incurable disease and his child snuck into the wolf territory alone, hoping to find a cure. As a little bunny affectionately calls him Papa, he explains that when they were trapped by trespassing charges, it was Lady Chloe who came to their rescue. Facing the scarred rabbit and his companion, Chloe wonders internally what he means by repaying her kindness. Thud! The three feline beastmen are suddenly caught in a net, knocked out cold, as a nearby rabbit screams that they're the other participants. The scarred rabbit offers the captured beasts to Chloe as her hunting targets, but she worries that accepting help will get her disqualified. He tells her not to worry and asks if she recognizes a certain object, immediately capturing her attention. A rabbit's paw holds up a leafy green plant that seems to sparkle with a special energy. Haha. Chloe giggles to herself, realizing her knowledge of the plant comes from an animal show she watched in her past life. With a devious grin, she clarifies that this isn't ordinary catnip. This is the potent, spicy catnip. She explains that this herb causes young felines to hallucinate, as one of the trapped beasts dizzily cries for its mommy. He explains his plan was to use the herb to make the beasts think they were attacked by countless rabbits, assuring Chloe her victory is guaranteed. Blushing, Chloe thinks that if that's the case, she can finally stop trying to hunt hawks. Not so fast, Chloe heiress, a voice yells, as she is suddenly knocked aside with a thwack. Hey hey, the small tied-up caracal beastman smirks at her, threatening to tell the truth and get her disqualified for being a coward. HMPH. Chloe looks down at the defiant Caracol, wondering what kind of plan he's cooking up. Her eyes glowing. Chloe looms over him, musing that an evil rabbit like her should just smack him. The Caracol cries out in terror. She smirks smugly, reminding him that as a daughter of the Leander family, she has certain privileges. "Shut up and open your mouth," she orders, shoving the catnip at the terrified Caracol, who begs her not to get him disqualified. He pleads desperately, explaining his family will kick him out if he's disqualified, which seems to make Chloe hesitate. A black-haired boy with blue eyes appears, thinking to himself that this Caracol situation seems similar to someone named Zion's. Tears stream down the tied-up Caracol's face as he wonders if their meeting is more than just a coincidence. "What's your name?" Chloe demands, and the startled Caracol yelps. "Ah, my name is Pedro Myers." With a tear rolling down his cheek, Pedro looks up in complete confusion. The thoughtful black-haired boy watches on, again wondering if this child could be like Zion. Grabbing him, Chloe again demands to know his name, and he nervously blurts out, "Eek, P. Pedro Myers." Pedro looks up, a tear in his eye, completely baffled by the situation. A quiet moment passes between them. The crying, bound Pedro looks at Chloe, who thoughtfully chews on her necklace. Chloe gives Pedro a long, contemplative look, trying to figure something out. As other rabbits whisper in the background, Chloe decides she should try to lighten the mood first, seeing how scared Pedro is. She gently extends a paw toward him, and he looks up, startled by the gesture. "I'm Pedro Myers," he introduces himself, adding that they can't shake hands because he's tied up, which makes Chloe exclaim with a sudden realization. A voice asks if his family plans to disown him if he fails to become the Lion Clan heir. Pedro sadly explains that his grandfather used to be kind, but he changed 2 years ago after his father died at the border. When he adds that it was near the wolf territory, Chloe's eyes widen in surprise. He explains that ever since his father died, his grandfather has been controlling him like a puppet, determined to make him the new heir. He fears his grandfather will find a new successor and cast him and his mother out if he proves inadequate. With tears in his eyes, he tells Chloe he doesn't want to leave his home to live with his grandmother, where it always smells of alcohol. He admits he doesn't understand why he must become the Lion Clan heir, but he knows abandonment is the price of failure. Clenching his fist, he declares with renewed purpose that he absolutely cannot get disqualified. A shocking glimpse reveals a large, dark bruise on his leg. Pedro becomes flustered and angry, but Chloe simply shakes her head in response. As Chloe turns to walk away, Pedro panics and asks where she's going, while she thinks to herself that she's heard his situation. "What?" he cries out, watching in utter disbelief as she leaves him behind. Chloe defiantly asks why she should be disqualified, as a voice declares it's because she is different. The voice continues, explaining Chloe doesn't need anyone's approval as she holds the ropes binding Pedro. Wah! Caught in a net, Pedro cries out in distress. Pedro declares he wants to become the Lion Clan heir, while Chloe looks on unimpressed. A close-up reveals Chloe's wide, determined green eyes. Wham! She uses a purple mana stone to strike the net holding Pedro. Chloe snatches Pedro's protective mana stone, leaving him to yell that she's a scammer. Surrounded by tough-looking rabbits, a terrified Pedro hears one ask Chloe if he should be knocked out too. Chloe calls him an idiot for trying to fight a losing battle, assuring him she wasn't lying about helping. Looking up hopefully from his net, a blushing Pedro asks if she will really protect him. Chloe reveals her plan to first get the dazed feline beastman disqualified at base camp. She explains that for his safety, his family will be forced to send a rescue team to find him. She reassures him that since it'll be ruled an accident, he won't be immediately kicked out of his family. With her plan laid out, Chloe offers Pedro his necklace back. The golden necklace with its green gems swings tantalizingly close to Pedro's net. After taking the necklace, a worried Pedro asks what will happen if no one comes for him. He clutches the jewel, sadly wondering if his grandfather would even bother sending a rescue team. A white paw bonks Pedro on the head, startling the already frustrated Caracol. An unseen voice chides him, insisting that, of course, someone will come for him. Chloe gazes gently at the still-trapped and blushing Pedro. In her human form, Chloe's eyes widen with a sudden, brilliant idea. The same look of dawning realization appears on her rabbit face. A brown-haired boy muses that if Chloe throws a tantrum about saving a friend in danger, it just might work. Chloe stands before the netted Pedro, who looks up at her with a blush of nervous hope. With a mischievous grin, Chloe asks the scarred rabbit to help tie Pedro to a tree branch. A bewildered Pedro can only look on in confusion. A few minutes later, Pedro hangs from a tree while a rabbit asks if he's okay. The scarred rabbit and his companion bid Lady Chloe farewell as she smiles gratefully. Chloe cheerfully tells Pedro that the other rabbits will handle the beasts, and he tearfully promises to keep her secret. The scarred rabbit lets out a happy, satisfied laugh. Two other rabbits gush over how cool Lady Chloe is, wishing they could be like her. Flustered and proud, Chloe strikes a triumphant pose. Elsewhere, the other feline beastmen yawn and stretch, waking up from their urban-induced stupor. A blonde-haired man with a concerned expression notes that Chloe is pretty late. A white-haired woman suggests they wait, while the black-haired boy thinks they're being overprotective. The black-haired boy's concern grows as he wonders when Chloe will return. A pair of white rabbit ears pokes up from behind a thick bush. Chloe emerges from the foliage, holding a leafy sprig in her mouth. Her waiting family, including two blonde men, a white-haired woman, and the black-haired boy, beams with relief. A blonde-haired man calls out Chloe's name as his group looks relieved to see her. Suddenly, a white-haired man doubles over in apparent pain. Unaware of the commotion, Chloe happily munches on her leafy prize. A blonde-haired man picks up Chloe in her rabbit form, declaring her cute from every angle. The white-haired woman asks what's in her mouth, but Chloe insists she's fine and just wants to be kept safe. The scene focuses on the ornate design of a man's formal suit jacket. Chloe appears in her human form, still holding the sprig of leaves in her mouth. Two noblewomen gossip nearby, wondering what a small child could have caught, mockingly suggesting a squirrel or a rabbit. Their mockery turns to terror as they scream at the sight of the massive eagle Chloe has trapped in a net. The blonde-haired man stares in shock, asking Chloe how she managed such a feat. A woman with light brown hair points past the bird in astonishment, asking what is behind the eagle. A spotted feline beastman's paw goes limp, dropping from the ropes of a net. Two parents cry out in horror, recognizing their three dizzy, unconscious children. As panicked voices call out the names Chandler and Austin, Chloe stoically accepts a leafy sprig. A distraught woman holding one of the dazed children frantically demands a doctor. A man with light brown hair calmly reassures her that they are all right. Mwah! The man looks utterly shocked as one of the dazed children giggles, asking what he just heard. A hand presents the leafy green herb, revealing the cause of the commotion. An explanation reveals the herb causes hallucinations, as one delirious child remembers a shining bunny saving it, while a listener expresses doubt. A man in a white coat approaches, and the worried woman with light brown hair looks up at him. Pat, the man with light brown hair, flushes, startled by the other man's sudden appearance. The man in the white coat identifies the herb as an immature, spicy wild mint, noting it's not well known in lion territory and can be dangerous. He gravely adds that it's a dangerous plant that can cause full body paralysis. The light brown-haired man panics over paralysis, but the expert clarifies that children are only experiencing mild hallucinations and Chloe's magic is not involved. The man in the white coat pauses, his expression turning serious as he considers the situation. Chloe thoughtfully brings a finger to her lips, a plan clearly forming in her mind. She looks on with a pensive, almost mischievous glint in her eyes. The woman with light brown hair blushes, flustered by the turn of events. Sure, she stammers, agreeing to an unheard request with a look of panic. Her face flushes with embarrassment as she looks down at the dazed child in her arms. An order is given to move the affected children to the infirmary with their parents. With that situation handled, Chloe turns her serious attention to the next matter. A distinguished gray-haired man approaches and greets her as young Lady Chloe. His expression becomes serious as he tells a curious Chloe that there is something she needs to know. He holds up the purple mana stone that Chloe had previously taken from Pedro. A bright, happy laugh escapes Chloe as she sees the stone. A flash of light in her eye signals a moment of brilliant realization. A voice suddenly shouts, "Marquise Myers, hold a moment." As the crowd murmurs, Chloe watches the man and woman who were just addressed. She learns that a child from the Myers family has lost their protection magic stone. Chloe's eyes sparkle with excitement as she realizes her plan is falling into place perfectly. Meanwhile, in the hunting grounds, Pedro remains suspended in a net high up in a tree. As expected, no one is coming for me, he fumes, angrily clutching his necklace in the trap. Believing he was tricked, Pedro bitterly recalls his earlier encounter with Chloe's rabbit form. His eyes snap wide with alarm as he suddenly senses a new presence nearby. A massive eagle is perched on a branch just above his net, staring down at him. Terrified, Pedro realizes he needs to use his protection stone, but he doesn't know how the eagle got so close. The eagle's menacing face reflects in his eye as he hesitates, knowing that using the stone means disqualification. As a distant voice calls his name, Pedro lets out a fierce, desperate roar. Just as the eagle swoops down to attack, he bravely leaps from the branches. Thwack! The eagle's powerful beak gets caught in the now empty net. Pedro cries out, having been struck by the eagle's talons during his escape. An adult caracal appears, watching the scene unfold with a severe expression. The small, vulnerable Pedro looks up at the imposing adult who has just arrived. The adult caracal clutches his chest, his stern facade breaking with overwhelming relief. Tears well up in Pedro's eyes as he touches his own chest, exhausted and overwhelmed. The adult caracal pulls the crying Pedro into a powerful, comforting hug. "My poor grandson," he says softly, "you must have had a hard time." Elsewhere, Chloe stands alone, a quiet and contemplative look on her face. Startled, Chloe looks up as a woman's voice demands she start explaining everything now. A white-haired woman and the blonde man, Ian, look on with nervous expressions. Ian reminds Chloe she promised not to use dangerous methods, leaving a panicked Chloe to wonder how he knew before she could even think of an excuse. Her foot steps firmly on a green vine on the ground. The woman asks if Chloe used dangerous methods, and Chloe admits her approach was a bit underhanded. She proudly explains that she used mint herb as bait to catch her prey. Asking if she's totally awesome, Chloe turns to a stoic-looking Zion, who offers no reaction. Seeing the adults' unconvinced faces, Chloe realizes with a pout that they don't believe her. Determined, she decides it's time to use a special skill she hasn't used in a long time. She unleashes her special move, irresistibly cute eyes that are guaranteed to evoke sympathy. The tactic works perfectly as her mother and Ian gasp, completely flustered by her cuteness. Admitting defeat, they both agree that their adorable daughter would never do such a thing. Her mother pats her head, revealing it was Lucien who suspected her first, much to Chloe's surprise. Lucien looks away, a faint blush on his face as he thinks. A blushing Chloe looks up, completely flustered by the turn of events. As her parents praise her, Chloe quietly decides she'll stop using herself as bait from now on. Chloe looks ahead thoughtfully, a question mark appearing as she ponders the situation. In a memory, a woman reassures a large beast cat that her cub is safe as the little one cries for its mommy. Chloe watches nervously as an elderly, white-haired man walks purposefully toward her. Her heart flutters with anxiety as she wonders why the Marquis is approaching them. She steels her resolve, remembering she gave Pedro a magic stone and vowing to protect him if the Marquis has figured out their plan. Chloe peeks out from behind Ian as the silver-haired Marquis stops before them. The Marquis suddenly kneels before them. Onlookers gasp in shock, wondering why the famously proud Marquis is kneeling. He apologizes for his past rudeness, explaining that his own son died in battle near the wolf territory, leaving Chloe and her mother stunned. He recalls how his hatred grew when he first heard that Lady Chloe, who seemed to have everything, had been named a successor candidate. In a dark memory, his expression hardens with resentment. He continues, explaining his hatred for her being protected by her ancestors' blood while his family suffered. Hearing his confession, Chloe looks up with wide, shocked eyes. The Marquis explains he came to believe his grandson Pedro should take the successor seat instead. A memory shows a young, innocent-looking Pedro. A hand reaches out in the golden light of the memory. The Marquis remembers placing a comforting hand on his grandson Pedro's shoulder. Pedro looks up at his grandfather with a worried expression. The Marquis strokes Pedro's hair, admitting with regret that all his efforts only ended up making his grandson suffer. A shocked Ian realizes Chloe hadn't explained the full story, but she quickly defends her actions, stating she was protecting Pedro. A close-up shows Chloe's earnest, blushing face. In a shared memory, Chloe and Pedro look down upon the collapsed Marquis. Chloe gently tells the kneeling Marquis that it's okay and asks him to stand, while Ian looks down at her with a soft, blushing smile. Ian closes his eyes, moved by her kindness. Pedro walks up and gently pokes Chloe's nose as she says his name. Pedro looks at her with a sincere and heartfelt expression. With a warm smile, Chloe tells him she's glad he's safe now. A woman leads Pedro away at the Marquis' request to get his injuries treated. The Marquis tells Chloe to focus on Pedro, assuring her that he is taking care of the other matter. As Chloe turns, she's surprised to hear an announcement that the winner has been decided. Ian smiles proudly, while Lucien and Chloe's mother celebrate joyfully in the background. The two beast cats appear above a surprised Chloe's head. Overjoyed, Chloe breaks into a radiant, happy laugh. The scene pans out to the grand staircase, where butlers and maids look on. A flustered Chloe tells herself she isn't nervous at all, just focused on taking the prize necklace and leaving. Muttering about needing to look dignified, a nervous Chloe attempts to practice her walk. She suddenly stumbles, looking up with a blush at the black-haired boy standing before her. Mortified, Chloe asks if she looks weird, but the boy calmly tells her to just walk as she normally would. He elaborates, telling her to walk in a way that proves she is the rightful successor. As the black-haired boy smiles encouragingly, a blushing Chloe stares back with wide, hopeful eyes. Her blush deepens as she takes in his kind expression. Thump thump, her heart races with embarrassment and excitement. As the surprised boy looks on, she starts to say something, but abruptly stops herself. Stammering an apology, a flustered Chloe clasps her hands together as the boy questions her behavior. She gathers her courage, her expression turning determined. She recalls a memory of confidently introducing herself as Chloe Heiress to the same boy while he was reading. In the memory, the black-haired boy looks up from his book with a soft, curious gaze. Back in the present, Chloe hesitates, trying to find the right words to say. Laughing nervously, she admits she hadn't really thought about it, much to the boy's unamused disappointment. She turns away, still blushing from the awkward encounter. Suddenly, a man's voice calls out, "My lady, here you are," startling the preoccupied Chloe. A man in a formal suit informs her the winner's announcement is about to begin and offers to escort her. The black-haired boy watches her leave with a faint, knowing smile. As she's led away, Chloe feels a sudden unease, contemplating the difficulty of changing the original story. Walking away, she's filled with doubt, wondering if she can truly rule the lion territory. She reminds herself that she is just an extra in the original story, heightening her anxiety. She looks ahead, her expression a mixture of worry and resolve. The blonde man from earlier stands ready with the prize, a gentle smile on his face. Chloe shyly accepts, telling the man she thinks her uncle is really cool. The prize is revealed to be a magnificent, ornate necklace with a large, glowing purple jewel. He places the ancient necklace, known as the blue tear of the mermaid, around her neck. A close-up highlights the intricate, sparkling details of the successor's necklace. The magical jewel at the center of the necklace shines with a brilliant light. Chloe clutches the heavy necklace, looking surprised by its tangible power. She looks up from the necklace, her expression one of utter shock. The blonde man gazes down at her with a serious and unreadable expression. He reaches out and gently adjusts the necklace for her. The blonde man kneels down to her level, his face softening into a warm smile. From a nearby staircase, a white-haired man and woman look on with pride. The blonde man joins Chloe's proud parents, all three of them beaming down at her. Poofed! Leaning in, the blonde man whispers a warning not to tell someone named Blake, as he would try to take her position. He pulls back with a confident, slightly blushing smile. He gently takes Chloe's hand and encourages her to show off her new title. She clenches her fist by her side, thinking to herself that this is right. A vision of a silhouetted blonde man holding a dagger appears as he vows to never let his people die. Chloe resolves to prevent the tragedy of the original story, symbolized by two viciously fighting beasts. The black-haired boy watches her with a stern, thoughtful expression. The blonde man and the white-haired man from her family share a moment of pure, unbridled joy. The happy moment is framed by a flourish of bright pink flowers. With newfound determination, Chloe raises her arm to the crowd. An older gray-haired man and a younger brown-haired man lead the applause. Standing before her family and the assembled crowd, Chloe is met with thunderous applause. As Chloe takes a deep bow, the black-haired boy continues to watch her intently. As Chloe leans against the black-haired boy, she tells him she has already decided, addressing him as Zion while he praises her for doing well. He turns her to face him, and a flustered, blushing Chloe looks up at him in surprise. A close-up shows her hand resting gently on his shoulder. Zion smiles warmly, taking her arm in his hand. He tells Lady Chloe Leander that he will be counting on her from now on, and she clenches her fist with a determined blush. Zion's attention is drawn to a brown-haired boy, nervously peeking from behind a nearby stone pillar. Startled, the brown-haired boy flinches as Zion suddenly appears behind him. Zion stares down at the other boy with a cold and intimidating glare. His expression softens as he turns back to Chloe, telling her it's time to go because her parents are waiting. As they walk, Zion resolves to start training even harder tomorrow, determined to surpass the Caracol. In the background, the brown-haired boy watches as Chloe laughs joyfully, while Zion looks on with a faint blush and a serious expression. His resolve hardens as he thinks to himself that he wants to become someone she can truly rely on. The scene shifts to the exterior of a grand, brightly lit mansion at night. Inside, the blonde man carries a sleeping Chloe down a long hall, followed by a maid with a basin. He quietly opens the door to her room. He gently lays the sleeping girl in her bed, her new necklace still around her neck. The maid addresses the blonde man as Your Grace, offering to prepare the young lady for bed, but he seems lost in thought. His delayed response leaves the maid looking confused. Watching Chloe sleep, the blonde man finally agrees, telling the maid he understands. The scene focuses on the basin of water, ready to be used. He gently wipes the sleeping Chloe's face with a warm cloth, and she murmurs softly. She squirms away, complaining that it tickles, which startles the blonde man. He insists that even so, she must wash her face, hands, and feet. Much to her sleepy displeasure, light shines as he looks on with a determined expression. The magical necklace around her neck gives off a faint, shimmering glow. He gently adjusts the covers around her. He holds her small hand as she sleeps soundly, her face peaceful. He looks down at her with a gentle and affectionate smile. He wonders what she desires so deeply that would make her wish to become the successor. With a flash of resolve, he clenches his fist, his expression serious. Stretching in her sleep, Chloe vows that she will make sure to save her whole world. The intimate moment is paused, showing only a soft pink background. She then adds that afterward, they'll eat a giant pudding together, causing the blonde man to stifle a laugh. As he dabs her forehead, a faint wisp of dark energy seems to rise from her. He watches over her as she mumbles in her sleep that only the official successor is allowed to enter. Her words trigger a memory for him, and he recalls the restriction placed on the archives. Tucking her in, he reflects that his daughter is far too honest. He would have let her in anyway if she had just asked. A fond memory of Chloe's bright, joyous laughter flashes through his mind. He gently rests her head back onto the pillow. A warm, slightly blushing smile graces his face as he looks at her. He suddenly grips his side with a pained expression. He thinks back to an old scar he received long ago. His thoughts drift to a memory of a woman with long, light purple hair and a scar on her cheek, who mentions that her own scar is throbbing again. A sudden chill fills the air as intricate frost patterns form on the surface of the water in the basin. He continues to gently clean the face of the sleeping girl, who is now drooling slightly. The blonde man looks down at the sleeping Chloe with a grave and thoughtful expression. A door quietly creaks shut, leaving the room in silence. Chloe sleeps peacefully, now clutching a small, soft bunny doll. The scene concludes with a view of an ornate, empty room, bathed in soft light. The final view is of a long, empty hallway with a deep purple carpet, waiting for what comes next. Crash! A mirror or vase shatters on the floor as a man with a cane gasps in shock. He stands amidst the broken shards, his posture rigid with disbelief. A flashback shows a robed figure bowing before a monstrous scaly beast, marking a pivotal moment. In another location, a man with brown hair and an eye patch questions the years of loyalty his Grevis family has shown. His hand tightens around the handle of his cane, his knuckles turning white with rage. He bitterly reflects that his house, represented by a shattered chess piece, should have been the one chosen. Overwhelmed by this turn of events, the man with the eye patch stands speechless as chess pieces fall around him. Stumbling back, he struggles to keep his footing. Thump! His cane strikes the floor with force. His shock gives way to a dark, calculating smile. He pauses, his expression shifting as he hears a sound from the doorway. A voice asks to come in, and the man calmly agrees, masking his inner turmoil. A young, red-haired girl with a concerned expression peeks into the room. The girl, Diana, asks what happened, and her father blames a dropped vase before questioning her about speaking with a child from House Leander. Diana's face lights up with a happy blush as she confirms she met Chloe. Her father smiles faintly, announcing his plan to invite the Leander family to their castle for the final trial. With a hopeful blush, Diana's thoughts turn to a boy named Scion. She asks if her father is inviting Scion, then hugs him, worrying the boy will be lonely and insisting she's cuter than Chloe. With a knowing smirk, her father reminds her of a lesson he taught her before. He promises his daughter whatever she desires, declaring that the entire world will soon belong to her. Diana beams with delight as her father vows to make the whole continent bow at her feet. She playfully tells him the world is already hers as he kneels before her. The first season concludes with a view of a wax-sealed letter, promising a side story next week. A side story begins as a monarch butterfly flutters across a sunlit, ornate balcony. The butterfly gently lands on the head of a small, white-haired child. The child is revealed to be a 4-year-old Chloe Aris, looking quite unimpressed. Looking at her reflection in the water, she yearns to transform into a magnificent wolf and run free. She hesitantly reaches a hand toward the sparkling blue water of a fountain. A golden paw flashes across the scene, hinting at a transformation. Instead, a blushing Chloe clumsily falls face first into the fountain. She lifts her head from the water, her expression a mix of surprise and disappointment. Whimper. A small golden puppy gently tugs on her dress, trying to get her attention. The adorable puppy continues to whimper, its face scrunched up with concern. A gentle voice from off-screen asks if a nearby boy is the gardener's son. A young, blonde-haired boy looks up, his face flushing with a shy blush. Chloe approaches the boy, startling him as she observes that he isn't a beast man like her. He excitedly describes a feeling like an explosion in his heart, leaving a confused Chloe to ponder his words. The boy quickly covers his mouth, remembering his father told him that some words are taboo around the princess. A flashback shows his father reassuring him that the princess will be able to transform naturally someday. Chloe realizes with a blush that the boy's father has already taught him how to transform. The scene shifts, focusing on the ornate stone edge of the fountain. Yellow flowers float peacefully on the sparkling water of an indoor pool. A beautiful woman with long white hair gasps in surprise. The woman, Chloe's mother, lifts her into the air, lovingly telling her not to worry. Chloe protests, reminding her mother that she and her uncle transformed when they were 4, leaving her mother flustered. Changing the subject, her mother offers to show her a storybook she just brought. She presents a green book with a picture of a sad, crying white fox on the cover. Chloe's large green eyes sparkle with curiosity as she stares at the book. Curled up in her mother's lap in a rocking chair, Chloe listens intently as they read the story together. Tasca. A young, white-haired Chloe reads a book about a sad white fox, annoyed that it's not what she wanted to learn. Her large green eyes peer intently over the top of the book. She recalls her father's advice that a tense situation might help trigger her transformation. Elsewhere, the young blonde boy gasps, covering his mouth in surprise. Chloe looks at the image of the crying fox with a sympathetic blush. Her mother reads along with a serene, closed-eyed smile. She continues the story, describing a blunt and stubborn man as the scene shows an elegant bedroom. Listening intently, little Chloe asks her mother about the water. Her mother looks down at her with a tearful, loving blush. Chloe looks up at her mother, completely absorbed in the moment. Surrounded by an illusion of blue flowers, she looks up with wide, innocent eyes. The storybook floats in her memory, its image of the fox now seeming more hopeful. The scene returns to the garden, where a bored-looking Chloe lies amongst yellow flowers. The blonde boy rushes over, greeting the princess with a bright, blushing smile. He nervously says it's been a while an unimpressed Chloe sits beside him. She turns away from him with a slight frown. Sigh, the boy grabs her in a panic, quickly apologizing for asking something unnecessary. He pulls back, looking at her with a concerned expression. A flustered Chloe asks him about a flower crown. He eagerly demonstrates, explaining that you twist the flowers together to form a crown. Intrigued, a blushing Chloe watches him work. Her expression softens as she continues to watch him. She recalls her mother's gentle, teary smile, remaining silent. The blonde boy kneels, looking up at her with a radiant smile as he holds the flowers. In a happy memory, Chloe places a flower crown on her delighted mother's head. The blonde boy watches them from the side with a warm, joyful blush. He and Chloe are shown happily running together in the garden. The two children share a moment of pure, uninhibited laughter. They happily collapse onto a field of flowers, smiling at the sky. The blonde boy looks over at her with a gentle and affectionate smile. His joy fades when his father informs him they must return to the dog territory next week, as his grandmother is ill. Lying in the grass, Chloe looks up at him with a curious blush. What? She sits up in shock, exclaiming that he's her very first friend. They stand face to face amidst a flurry of pink petals, both blushing. The blonde boy nervously clenches his fists at his side. He looks away, his face flushed with emotion. They stand close together, their feet planted in the soft grass. The boy looks at her with a confused, questioning expression. The scene transitions to a sunny day in the elegant conservatory garden. A few years later, a slightly older Chloe smiles as she happily draws in a notebook. Zion suddenly appears behind her, calling her name and startling her. Responding to her, Zion tells her the Grand Duke is calling them to dinner. He stands by her desk, watching her as she gets up to leave. A A faint blush appears on Zion's face as he frowns thoughtfully. He admits to himself that seeing her drawings of someone else gives him a strangely unpleasant feeling.